Tony, we're streaming?
We're streaming. Okay. Are we audio and video early? Detroit Red Wings. The wheel is on the left. The wing goes to the right.
Thank you. I'm going to ignore it completely until I have to.
The penguin skates to the left. The Minnesota Wild goes to the left.
Just don't care.
Is the black one. And the cheesy one. That's true. Buffalo
Oh, Gussie, you're good.
Yes, they came like they did.
Hey John, how you doing? You need another chair or we good?
Yes, we
I know. We might free up space.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Township of Fairfield's Board of Adjustment meeting for March 19th, 2024. This is our regular meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Steve, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Moriano. Mr. Honorata.
Here.
Mr. Metallo.
Here.
Mr. Baskinger.
Here.
Mr. Travato.
Here.
Mr. Carmagnola.
Here.
Mr. Iania.
Here.
Mr. Ivaron.
Here.
Mr. Fiatarolo.
Here.
Chairman Lapari.
Here. Also in attendance tonight is our Board Attorney Lou Rago, our Board Secretary and Township Engineer Steve Burry, our Planner Representative from Burgess, Representative John Zabo, and our transcription by Margot Bivlin. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is April 16th, 2024. Let it be stated that adequate notice for the time and date for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and delivered to the Star Ledger and the Progress, and that no case will be allowed to start its presentation after 11 p.m. First order of business is, can I have a motion to approve the February 20th, 2024 regular meeting minutes? Mr. Iania, second. Mr. Honorata, roll call, please.
Mr. Honorata.
Yes.
Mr. Metallo.
Yes.
Mr. Baskinger.
Yes.
Mr. Travato.
Yes.
Mr. Carmagnola.
Yes.
Mr. Iania.
Yes.
Mr. Fiatarolo.
Yes.
Chairman Lapari.
Yes. Yeah, Len. Oh, good. Hello, Marty.
Hi, how are you?
Also in attendance tonight is our board member, Marty Moriano. Next order of business, memorialization of resolutions. 2023-23 New Jersey Gospel Church, 40 Lane Road, Block 3104, Lot 2.02. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Carmagnola, second.
Second.
Mr. Baskinger, roll call, please.
Mr. Moriano.
Yes.
Mr. Honorata.
Yes.
Mr. Metallo.
Yes.
Mr. Baskinger.
Yes.
Mr. Travato.
Yes.
Mr. Carmagnola.
Yes.
Chairman Lapari.
Yes. Okay, to old business, application 2023-6, Route 46 East LLC, 460 Route 46 East, Block 3802, Lot 22.01. We have a letter, Lou, from the applicant which is Road 46 East Land and All Pro Car Wash, asking for the Board of Adjustment to extend to the April 16th meeting. Everything, I think, should be in order for that.
Is the notice, has the notice been
Yes,
approved? So we can carry.
yes, notice was originally approved on their first
notice
date.
to,
Carry for no
And we've
further
carried.
motion, notice, so if anybody was here for that, apologize, and we'll get to that on April 16th. With that said, tonight, first order of business. New business, application 2023-22, Courtyard Gardens, 212 Passaic Ave, block 2201, lot 15. They're here tonight for preliminary and final major site plan and D variance. Counselor, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah. Do we have to vote to extend the All Pro, or?
no, you use it, well, if you want to, but normally it's just the informal. If anyone says no, then you gotta talk about it, but other than that. Jesus.
Counselor, save me from this group.
Yes. I was gonna ask you to sing.
Ready for me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael LaParry. I'm an attorney with Mandelbaum Barrett. I'm counsel to the applicant Courtyard Gardens LLC. The applicant is before you this evening seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval with some associated bulk variances and a D6 heights variance for property located at 212 Passaic Ave, which is located in the L1 Light Industrial Zone. For those on the board that have been here for a while, you may recall that this applicant was before you on this property, and they obtained approval for an assisted living facility as far back as 2018. That project received a D1 use variance, a D4 FAR variance, a D6 height variance, and 3 associated bulk variances to allow parking and loading docks in the front yard. Unfortunately, following the COVID-19 pandemic, the assisted living facility or the assisted living industry took a major hit. And as a result of that, all of the requirements for those types of facilities have changed. The footprints are now have to get a little bit bigger. The rooms have to get a little bigger, and there have to be certain areas for, I guess, additional quarantine rooms, open space rooms, and just different regulations for communal living as a result of the pandemic. So in addition to that, there has been a huge increase in the cost of owning and operating those facilities, and one of which is the insurance that's required as a result of that. As you know, there was a slew of lawsuits against assisted living facilities. So, instead of coming back with a much larger assisted facility site that would accommodate the current market trends, the owner decided that they would try to present an application that was more in tune with the existing zoning and really what the current market is, which is for this smaller type of warehouse that's being proposed this evening. Of one note, we have the D6 height variance. That height is the same as what was approved at the last for the last application. We're not trying to make it any higher. We'll discuss why the market demands require a height of at least that size, and it was a struggle to keep it within that size, but we'll discuss that a little bit further through our professionals, as well as all the other site details and variances that we're seeking this evening. The witnesses that I'm going to present, just so everyone understands the order of my presentation, it's going to be, our first witness will be Charles Stewart, a professional engineer with E2 Project Management, LLC. Connor Hughes is a traffic engineer with Dynamic Traffic. Benjamin Horton is a principal at Ben Horton Architecture and Design. And our planner is John Tykina from All Things Planning and Development, LLC. Unless anybody on the board has any questions, I'll call my first witness.
Just, Counselor, just in case, is there anybody for that is one of the owners here tonight in case there's any questions? I don't foresee it, but.
We were supposed to have it, and it was a last-minute change. I got a call a half hour before that they were unable to make it, but they
Okay.
told me I could answer for them to the best extent that I could try to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stewart?
Raise your right hand, please, when you can. With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes, sir.
State your name and spell your last name, please, for the record.
Charles Stewart, Stewart.
Thank you.
Mr. Stewart, could you please provide the board with your educational and professional credentials?
Certainly. I'm a 1987 graduate from New Jersey Institute of Technology, where I received a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering. I've been practicing engineering, surveying, and planning for over 30 years. I hold a license as a professional engineer, a professional land surveyor, and a professional planner. I've testified thousands of times before boards around the state and before this board as well.
Yeah, Charles, you're accepted.
Thank you.
Charles, would you be able to take us through the existing conditions on the site and walk us through what's being proposed?
Sure. The property in question is block 2201, lot 15, also known as 212 Passaic Avenue. It is a 87,858 square foot parcel, which is equivalent to 2.02 acres, located in the L1 light industrial zone. If I could let me just put the existing conditions up here. These are the same plans that were submitted in to the board, except they're mounted now on a foam core.
Do the ones we have the red line, or did you recently mark that?
No, that's how it was submitted.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, the property is situated along Passaic Avenue, opposite the airport. Immediately to the left is the dance studio property, which I'm sure has been there forever. And then there's an existing access roadway that leads to the other industrial uses located behind this property. And then immediately adjacent to that is an existing office warehouse type structure. The property currently is vacant except for some remaining old pavement that was left out there and some other little paved area located in the back. The property has 151.7 feet of frontage along Passaic Avenue. It slopes from the back of the property down towards Passaic Avenue. Got about 10 feet of grade from the rear all the way to the back. The lot's about 444 feet deep. So everything slopes towards Passaic Avenue. You have existing utilities located within Passaic Avenue. You have sewer, water, gas, and they also go up. The sewer, water, gas, and electric also go up this existing service roadway that's immediately adjacent to the property. So what we're proposing here this evening is we are proposing, get the right plan here. We are proposing 21,954 square foot office building, situated kind of in the center of the property. We are proposing a existing small parking lot, 22-car parking lot in front of the building. So you would come in off Passaic Avenue, you would come in this access roadway, which we have rights to according to our property deeds. And you would come into this small parking lot here. The office area is located in the front of the building, so employees would park in the front. And then in the back, you would continue up the driveway, and then you would access a parking lot located behind the building, which would have 5 loading dock bays in the rear portion of the building. We show a truck coming in here and backing in. This is your fire truck located in the upper right-hand corner here, your largest truck. So we show that it can get in the back. Traffic consultant. So we show them backing in here, yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Excuse me?
Fire truck has to back in?
The fire truck has to back in, yeah.
Mr.
Show them back in. I mean, I'm sure you could pull in,
Clarify something?
but I think it would be easier to back in, fight the fire, and then pull out. But like I said, everything slopes from the back towards the front. So this all slopes down towards the building, this back parking area We also have 9 parking spots located along this left rear portion of the property. So everything slopes towards the building. Right along the building and loading area is a trench grate that would collect the storm drain. We have a detention pond along this left-hand side, an open detention pond. That would then connect to another detention pond located across the front portion of the property. And then we would then connect out onto Passaic Avenue.
Excuse me, Chuck, just stop you for a minute. Yeah, Mr. Annan?
Mr. Stewart, could you just clarify, this is an office building and warehouse, correct?
This is, yes, there's,
Because you just stated that it was an office building.
I'm sorry, it's an office/warehouse.
Perfect, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I apologize.
That's okay. There's 3,000 square feet of the 22 will be designated for office space.
Okay, Mr. Vitale?
Mr. Stewart, what is that drawing number that you have there?
Excuse me?
The drawing number you have on the easel?
Oh, SP 104.
I'm looking at the one that was part of the packet we received, and I don't see the line showing the truck backing in. What's the revision there?
I believe we submitted
Yeah, we submitted a second.
a supplemental 104 with the truck turning radius.
Yeah, I think it might have been a separate sheet. I don't
There's an
recall.
SP 104.
I thought we filed all these.
SP 104, and I went crazy trying to find out, because in our planner's report, he makes reference, or even in the fire departments, they talk about that, and I said, what am I
They're gonna
missing?
have
I
to mark
couldn't
that.
find it.
That's
Now
not-
you just
that is-
showed it to me,
we
but
don't have
I have
that
that drawing, but it
SP 104
doesn't show
with the
that.
fire department.
Yeah, I have on here revision A, 1/8/24, truck turning revision.
Yeah, we're gonna have to mark that.
Yeah, why don't,
Definitely have to mark it.
we don't appear to have that? Why don't you
We
mark
have
that
an out- We
A1?
have a previous,
So we can call this
yeah.
colorized site plan?
This is what, A?
We'll call it
A1.
A1.
Right, because we had filed plans, and then Steve had asked for us to put fire truck on. And then we did that, and I thought we sent in all brand-new plans.
The ones we have are all dated 7/31/23.
What's the date on that?
Right, that's the original date. And then I have a revision date of 1. Read it.
Well, ours says the first issue was 4/7/23.
Oh, yeah, first issue, and then it's got the print date of 7/31.
Okay, well, you kept my sanity, thank you,
Okay,
at least temporarily.
so let me just put this on drainage. So like I said, we are collecting the storm water from the back portion of the property into a detention pond along the left side. And then that discharges into the detention pond along the front portion of the property. And then we have a small underground storm drain located underneath the front parking lot. We needed to add that in order to satisfy the NJDEP stormwater regs. The 2 ponds weren't enough, so we had to add a little bit more in order to satisfy the regs. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna collect the roof water and discharge that into the underground system, because the roof water, in accordance with NJDEP, is considered clean as far as the parking lot is considered.
Right, so we're seeking a variance for impervious coverage, but we have sufficient stormwater detention basins to satisfy the increase in impervious.
What we did is, when we designed the system, knowing that the impervious was over the allowable, we increased the size of the stormwater management facility to compensate for that increase in impervious.
Your impervious is up from 55 to 61.9, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we oversized the storm drain to compensate for the increase in impervious coverage.
Chuck, how does the site as it sits now compared to what you're going to build here for stormwater management? How does that compare?
Oh, there's a substantial reduction. In accordance with the state, you have to reduce the flow off-site by, for the 2-year storm, 50%, the 10-year storm, 75%, and the 100-year storm, 80%. So, and we have met all those. We've actually exceeded those requirements. And then we have just the remaining utilities. We're connected to the sewer, the water, the gas, storm drain, and the sanitary. It runs along the building as well. So all the utilities are there. So we tap into them. We have a proposed refuse enclosure located in that back corner. And that's pretty much it. Can run through the memos or something?
Yeah, maybe we do just touch upon a couple of items. Well, number one, I think we're also seeking a variance for minimum lot width. It was granted in the last application. The ordinance, I believe, requires a minimum of 200 feet in lot width. We have 151.7. That's obviously a condition we have no control over.
Pre-existing, yeah.
Right, it was approved in the past, and we're gonna ask for that variance again to the extent we need it. We will ask for it. Additionally, we have parking in the front of the building, and Mr. Burry pointed out that some ground-mounted equipment is located in the front yard. Those are the other variances that we're seeking. I think if, Chuck, if you could just explain real quickly the reason why we have parking in the front yard as a result of where we were sort of putting the bulk of the traffic and loading docks.
Right, we try to concentrate the loading in the back of the building. So you come up the driveway, come in the back, load, go back out, so it certainly can't be seen from Passaic Avenue. And like I said, the office area is located in the front, so we put a small parking lot located in the front portion of, so the employees don't interfere with the overall truck circulation traffic in the back, so that was how we came up with that.
Yeah, Mr. Travato?
Chuck,
Yeah.
as far as the truck traffic, are you estimating that they're gonna be tractor-trailer trucks, straight trucks,
Tractor-trailer trucks.
tractor-trailer?
Yes.
Are they gonna have to back in similar to what the fire truck has to do, or are they gonna be
No.
able to swing in?
No, they can swing right in, pull up in here, back into the loading dock. They pull straight in.
Okay.
That's why you have so much open, the open
We
pavement
need-
that you have there.
Yes, because this is essentially where they would load behind this trench drain area here, and then they need this approximately 70 feet to maneuver. We tried to reduce that, but according with the traffic consultant, they really need that extra area in order to swing the truck up in that back portion.
And again, this was designed to keep the truck traffic off of being right on Passaic Ave.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Baskin?
Mr. Stewart, you said that would be for a 48-footer, not a 53, correct?
I think it can fit the biggest one.
Got it.
Yeah.
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 It says, that's what at least I said.
Yeah, I don't know what the turning.
It's the biggest truck that's out there.
Yes, Mr. Hiroko?
So you come off Passaic Ave, make a right or a left, you come in, you're gonna bang a left into that front parking lot, correct?
Yes.
That front parking lot, so from, I'm just thinking about it, people are there, they're parking their cars, what's the distance between that front parking lot and Passaic Ave?
Let's say average, because it kind of tapers, I'm gonna go about 50 feet.
So it's pretty, because that's a high volume, high speed type of road,
Oh, yeah.
right? God forbid, you know, from a car perspective, park. Because thinking about the building to the right of it, there's no parking in the front of it, if I
No.
understand.
No, it's pretty close to the street.
To the street, building, okay.
Right, the building to the left, the parking is in the front yard,
In the back.
at the dance studio. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Vitale?
Yes, Mr. Stewart, you may choose to defer me to the traffic engineer, but I'd like your opinion. The entrance, egress and ingress to Passaic Avenue, there was no sheet in my packet or from the police department with any comments about the plan. And I was a little surprised because I would think what I'd really like to see would be a curve in and a curve out so that we don't get people coming out trying to go south.
Trying to make a left.
Yeah, and I've seen buildings where that's done nicely on Passaic Ave, and I've seen some where it's not done, but they put up a sign, but I don't think, a lot of people can't read well.
It's a nice way of putting it.
Do you think that there's sufficient space to do that with a little island in the middle, which might really be a nice place for your monument sign? The monument sign.
Are you talking about putting something in the existing?
It's in the middle of that. I mean, I measured it off at about 50 some odd feet, maybe. This, meaning the curve cut, opening. Are you following what I'm asking for?
Not really. Are you talking about at R, at the,
Well, but it's got, people have to come in here. I'm talking about this.
Yeah, but you would have to get
Well,
you're talking about the main access road off Passaic Avenue?
yeah, correct.
Right, that's serviced by a number of other facilities in the back.
Control of that space.
And people all make a left-hand turn out here. This is a common left, because you got the lights at New Dutch and Grandview, Greenbrook.
Yeah, I noticed that. There are
So there's
two
a lot of
lights
gaps.
that aren't that far away, and if you time it right,
Yeah.
it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Fine. It's okay with the police, it's okay with me.
You know, while we're on it, Counselor, one of the comments we heard from our report, will you be able to commit to and get a copy to us of the easement agreement for the roadway?
Yes,
All right, that could be a condition of approval, just so we have it, we know it's solid.
I have that.
I'm
absolutely.
sure it is, but, you know, okay,
100%.
great.
And I didn't really touch on the landscape, man.
Yeah. Hey, Chuck, while you're going through that, would you mind just pull the microphone a little bit closer?
Oh,
I
yeah,
guess
sure.
They have limited range, they'll pick up the voice, so.
Okay, I'll just touch on the landscaping plan quick. It's, we tried to make the front, nice, green, some trees and shrubs, and then we also put some stuff in the back. If you've been out there, the site it's overgrown now, but it's overgrown with really like garbage trees. They're just like overgrown trees. It was obviously cleared at one time, and everything's kind of grown back now.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of like real nice specimen trees out there. But we're planning on, planting it up nice and making it look nice across the front. And then we have the lighting plan. Let me just show you this real quick. The lighting plan, we show on this right-hand side, we show what it will actually look like in a rendering, which I think it gives you a good idea of what it looks like, as opposed to looking at a plan and a bunch of numbers. This kind of shows exactly the lighting patterns that are proposed. But the lighting meets the zoning requirements as far as intensity goes, so.
Chuck, what, I'm sorry, yeah, Brian.
Are you done with the landscape, talking about the landscape?
Yeah.
I have a question in regards to the holding area, adjacent to Passaic Ave. Can you explain what that's gonna be made of and how it's gonna look?
You're talking about the stormwater feature?
Yes, and how it will be maintained.
Okay, that is just gonna be a grass basin, gently sloped, 3-to-1 slope. So it'll be lawn, essentially. So it's really just like a depression. It's gonna have an outlet structure in it, typical of any other detention basin.
So it's not haze and rocks, because we tend to see those get overgrown, they don't get taken care of, and this is on the main thoroughfare.
Oh, this will be manicured. This will be manicured. It'll be just like a lawn.
Okay, maybe we could add that conditions if it's approved. Thank you.
Chuck, let's go back to, let's start with the fire department. It seems like half of the issues the fire department are architectural, half are engineering. When it comes to fire hydrant, the fire lane and zone mark, the ladder truck access, and whatever a truck spur is, unless it's spelled wrong in the report, are some of those gonna be your deal? And Counselor, will you guys commit that you will get a passing grade from the fire department eventually for the approvals?
Yes, we discussed this internally, and I believe we can accommodate all of the requests that were in this report.
Okay, and when it comes to the backing in of the fire truck or not, Chuck, I guess whatever makes the fire department happy, if they accept that, they're comfortable.
Yeah, we discussed that, and we all think that if there was ever a fire here, they would either pull out onto Passaic Avenue and pull hoses, or they'd pull up this access driveway and pull hoses. I don't think they'd ever pin themselves in the front of the building here.
Right.
You know, they would be close, but that's what I've heard from fire officials over the years. I'm certainly not a fireman, but.
We'll
Jim, this is one of the reasons why the fire department's comments stated that you have to show they have the same drawing we have, I think, which doesn't show the backing in. And they made a comment that we need to see that.
Well, it was my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong because it doesn't specify what they looked at, but it's my understanding that they said they wanted us to show if they could have access in the front. The access that we show on our plan was just for the rear of the building, which is what made me think that they saw the plan. I mean, again, I will have to clarify that, and we'll work with the fire department to make sure that they're satisfied with the plan.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm questioning, you say you don't know what don't you think they're looking at the same drawing we are, which is?
Well, the reason I thought that was because we show access to the rear of the building, and their only question was to ask if they could also go into the front.
But don't they say something about, show a schematic of the truck backing in, or something like that? Let me see, here it is. FTC, no, that's the connection, Fairfield. Provide Fairfield truck number 1 exact specifications. Need ladder truck front of structure, no. That's what you were referring to.
Right.
Anyway, I just think we have to make sure that they have that drawing.
Agree with you.
Agree?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Mr. Carmignolo.
what's the reason why this fire truck can't come up and swing a left into there? But I'm gonna say something, you know, if I'm a fireman, I'm on my way to a fire, do you really think I wanna back a hook and ladder into a burning building? I'm gonna be thinking about that, I'm gonna be coming up trying to get to that building as fast as I can.
Yeah, well, that's why I just said, they're either gonna pull up front, or they're gonna pull up this roadway here and park and fight the fire.
Why can't he swing into that back, let's say the fire's in, one of the tractor trailers are on fire in the back, parked in the parking lot, catches on fire. Why isn't that truck able to get in there and make the left?
Well, I think it can.
Well, that's
I
not
think
can it or it can't?
Well,
Depends on the truck.
it depends on the truck, but I mean, you could swing it out here, pull in, and even if it's, pull at the corner of the curb, you're still in,
We will agree to provide revised drawings to the fire department to make sure that they're okay with it, and we'll condition upon them signing off on it, because we understand the importance of it.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Moriano.
fire safety is, I think, encompassed by the Land Use Act and about the state Land Use Act. And we're talking about fire access, fire truck access, and it's all conjecture. I think we should have clear proof that it's just as adequate for the fire trucks to back in as is to go in front way.
How would you go about getting that proof short of resubmitting another plan after they meet with the fire department? And if they get a sign off from the fire department that the appropriate plan would have to be, like, how would you?
I don't know that it's just as efficacious for a fire truck to back in as it is for a fire truck to go in front ways.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe when we have our traffic engineer, feels even more confident that they can get in there. It's not, we understand the plan doesn't reflect it. but maybe we could have him touch upon that when he testifies as well, to make the board a little bit more at ease. But again, we will submit the plan to the fire department. We'll revise it to show that it can make the maneuver. And we'll coordinate also with Mr. Burry as necessary, to make sure that, again, everybody's all signed off on the fire access issue.
Mr. Perry?
Yep.
If need be, can you increase that curb cut, you know, the entrance?
Sure. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chuck,
Options there.
just to review, the lighting review, and you've got all the shielding you need. It looks like from your picture that you must have shielding because the lights don't flash out off the property, correct?
Right, that's the point of the rendering. It really shows exactly what's proposed.
Okay. Is there any difference in the, considering this is a major development, I read it on either Mr. Zabo or Mr. Burry's report, for the stormwater management difference between NJDP and the municipality, or?
No, it's the same.
It's the same, yeah. Okay. And as far as the landscaping is concerned, did you consider trying to get any more landscaping in the front or on the, on the little detention area in the front to be able to block a little? You seem to be blocking a decent amount of the front yard cars, but was there anything you could do directly in the front when you're facing the building? Or do you have to keep away from that drainage area?
No, we
completely?
could. We actually discussed that. We could add shrubbery along the back of this parking lot here.
All right, what would you, off the top of your head, do you know what you might want to put there?
Well, these little shrubs that are out here right now are, little junipers,
How high do they get eventually?
3.5 to 4 feet high.
Oh, okay. Can we make that a condition of approval that you switch the, mark up the landscaping plan a little bit, submit it to Steve for his review, and if we have a decent little coverage there, we're in good shape?
Sure.
And lastly, there were some issues about the freestanding sign in the front. Can you go through that with us a little bit?
Sure. The sign is located right when you come in the parking lot in the front, just on the left-hand side. There's a freestanding sign. I think we have it. Do I have a detail? Okay, there's a detail on the architectural plans,
Okay.
but it is located right in this little corner just before the parking lot, just off the parking lot. And these shrubs are lower, so they won't block the sign. And the sign where it's located certainly does not affect the site triangle as well.
And you're not asking for any sign variance, so the whole sign will comply with whatever it has to for the freestanding?
Yes, and setback.
And setback, okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Chuck from the board? Seeing none, I'd like to open it up to the public for anyone who has any questions for the engineer. Seeing none, thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Thank you. My next witness is Connor Hughes. He's a professional engineer with Dynamic Traffic.
Raise your right hand, please. With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your name, spell your last name, please.
My name is Connor Hughes, Hughes.
Is it C-O-N-N-O-R?
O-R, yes. N-N-O-R, thank you for asking.
Okay.
Mr. Hughes, could you please provide the board with your educational background and some of your professional qualifications?
Certainly. I am a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, licenses in good standing. I have been practicing traffic engineering for the past 7 years. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from NJIT 2017. I have been accepted as an expert witness at various boards throughout the state, including this one. It was my very first one, actually, about a couple years ago. But I have been accepted at various other boards as a professional traffic witness.
Thanks. I would like to offer Mr. Hughes as a professional engineer here at Traffic.
Thank you.
Connor, could you please, you prepared a report and submitted it to the board?
Yes, that's correct.
Could you please take us through some of your findings and conclusions as it relates to the site?
Certainly. So we did prepare a report that's dated March 5th of this year, 2024. It's titled Circulation and Parking Assessment. The first thing we looked at was the trip generation aspects of the project. In particular, we utilized the ITE trip generation rates, as I'm sure you've heard from hundreds of other traffic engineers. So we utilized their use for general warehousing, being that based on the smaller size of the building and the fact that it's essentially a spec warehouse, we went with that general warehousing use. So we took a look at that trip generation and broke it down into both passenger car and truck trips. And we looked at particularly the morning and the afternoon weekday peak hour. So during that morning peak hour, those projections are 20 entering trips and 6 exiting trips for a total of 26. That includes 23 passenger cars and 3 trucks. And then in that afternoon peak hour, 8 entering trips, 21 exiting trips for a total of 29 with 25 passenger cars and 4 trucks. So overall, not a significant traffic impact or trip generator. Specifically, when you relate that to New Jersey DOT sets a threshold of 100 new peak hour trips to be considered a significant increase. We are well below that, right around 30. And the trucks as well will be minimal for a warehouse use. There will be obviously trucks involved, but again, based on the size of the use and the anticipated operations, we don't anticipate those to be a significant number. And we also did a comparison of the previous approval for the assisted living, just to kind of show the differences. During both those peak hours, there is a slight increase from the assisted living to the warehouse, but it's only 12 trips and 10 trips respectively during the morning and afternoon. So it's, again, not a large increase. And even just considering the total trips for the warehouse itself, it is not a high amount. In terms of the access, the circulation, the parking aspects, we heard our site engineer go through kind of the circulation patterns, how the truck access works. We do feel comfortable that that fire truck can make that left-hand maneuver into the back area of the site. We will, of course, as stated, provide the plan to show that movement and prove that that movement will work, and if necessary, expand those curb cuts a little bit. And as far as parking, the ordinance requires 31. That's 19 for the warehouse, 12 for the office. We're providing 31, so we do meet the parking requirement for the ordinance. And as well as we meet the standards for the parking stall size, 9 by 18 is required for employee spaces. We are providing 9 by 18, and we are also providing 24-foot two-way aisles in those passenger car circulation areas, which also meets the ordinance. So again, very brief, but trip generation is minimal. The truck trips associated with this particular warehouse we expect to be minimal, and the parking and access we do expect to operate in an efficient and safe manner. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to go into more details.
This is for both of you guys. Number one, we haven't really reviewed the fact yet that maybe the planner was going to do it, that this is a warehouse being built on spec, correct? It's not for a specific company and doesn't yet have tenants?
That's correct. There is a proposed, potential tenant out there, but there's no signed agreement.
Okay. So my question for the traffic expert is, how do you even begin to count the trips?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do it just by the size of the building, the square footage, the cubic footage? And how does that go? How would you battle that against the intensity of different businesses that might use the site?
Sure. So ITE does have a lot of different subcategories of warehouses because there's a lot of those out there. This general use that we utilize is typically for something like this, where it's a spec building. We're not sure what that end user is and what their exact operations are going to be. So, and it encompasses, I think it was like around 20 different study sites of varying different types of operations. So it kind of takes that average of maybe some higher users versus some low-end trip users. Just to compare, so one of the warehouse types, we call it a fulfillment center. That's where like those Amazon-type warehouses, very large buildings. They actually specify that those are a minimum of 200,000 square feet, and I forget what the ceiling height is there, but it's basically they do set parameters for the different types of warehouses, and we are nowhere near what those parameters would be for something like a fulfillment center or something that would be a much larger traffic generator.
But, again, but even for its type,
Mm-hmm.
someone's gonna be, I don't know if you're asking for it or not, but you've got 5 bays and the plans call for the possibility of 5 more bays.
Mm-hmm.
That's telling me that there's a pretty wide variety of uses that can go in there and how intense they are, because if this building has 5 bays and all of a sudden there's so much material going in and out of there that they want to open up 5 more, now you got 10 bays, it sounds like it's doubling the truck traffic. So again, I'm not sold on how minimal you're saying the truck trafficking will be. Maybe you
Okay.
can help me a little more with
Sure.
with it.
Yeah, so the number of bays doesn't always necessarily equate to more trucks. A lot of the times, those bays are just to provide more flexibility for the user. So not all those bays are necessarily going to be utilized at the same time. You're not going to necessarily have 10 trucks coming in to use all those 10 or even 5. And they are kind of spread out throughout the day too. But again, just basing on the loading bays themselves, again, it's really just to provide that more flexibility, since we don't know exactly what that user is going to be. And there is some level of factor of safety built in the sense that, you know, even, okay, so the IT projections are, for instance, in the peak hour, 4 trucks.
Right.
Even if it was double that, say 10 trucks, we still wouldn't necessarily equate that to be a significant impact. Again, because they're spread throughout the day, they're not all coming in at the same time, really. And it can be customized too with the specific user when that is determined.
Connor, is it also safe to assume that it's based largely on the overall square footage of the building, because you can only put so much product in and
Right.
get it out at a certain speed?
Right.
And once it comes out, it doesn't automatically reload itself. So the number of bays would be less relevant than the actual size of the building?
Right, certainly the size equates to the trips as well. And this is probably the smallest size that I've seen as far as a warehouse goes in the ones that I've done. So just for that reason as well, that's why we're projecting these numbers.
Okay. Mr. Iania?
Mr. Hughes, so you have 5 bays and potentially 10.
Mhm.
The additional 5 bays, is that based on anticipated growth or to eliminate the potential for queuing onto the property? Because it is kind of a difficult,
Sure.
it can be a difficult site to navigate.
Sure.
Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think it ties into both, you know, one being, again, the flexibility to provide that extra space in case for some reason the truck comes in, there's no bays for it to go. It can pull into one of those spots, not have to sit on the site somewhere or sit in that access aisle and block that. So I'm not sure what the developers' anticipated operations are, or, you know, the users are, but yes, I think that's a fair statement.
Now, you mentioned, if I may,
Sure.
one more question,
Yeah,
Mr.
go ahead,
Chairman.
Len. Keep
You
going.
mentioned that it was, you know, you used the fulfillment center as an example, am I correct?
Mhm.
You're familiar with cross docks?
Yeah, I think
What they
so.
call a cross dock. So,
Is that like on both sides?
yeah.
Right.
So basically unloading on one side of the building, picking and
Right, and
going out
driving
the other.
through.
So when I look at this, I look at it as being set up more as a cross dock type of operation.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say that my experience would be that you're probably gonna be looking for the 10 bays. So we're really talking about 10 bays, in my opinion.
Right.
And not
Yeah.
5, Mr. Chairman.
Wait 1 second, Marty.
I was just going to say, and we addressed the potential that you know, in your analysis, you accounted for the possibility of 10 bays.
Right.
Right,
I just wanted to, I'm not criticizing.
Right, I understand.
I'm just, in my experience, based on the size of the warehouse, I have a little experience in that area. We're really looking at 5+ bays, so you're talking 10 bays. The extra bays eliminate your queuing, but you may draw the type of customer that's gonna create a cross-dock type operation, not really a fulfillment center.
Mhm.
So, you know, it may be low volume, but you're gonna have a significant amount of vehicles on the property.
And, you know, I saw from the signs that there's a possibility of splitting this building in, if you get 2 or 3 smaller users, you could have a couple of different people. So if you're gonna, I guess if you're gonna divide the inside up, you need door access down the building.
Right.
Depending on how you're dividing it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Marty, go ahead.
Mr. Hughes, depending upon the exact type of warehouse use, the trips could be more or they could be less, am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, forgive me, this seems like speculation to me.
I understand, yeah, I understand the apprehension. So I'll give you a comparison of some of the different types of warehouses that could be generated for ITE. So the general warehousing use that we calculated, that's, again, 26 trips in the morning, 29 in the afternoon. For a high cube fulfillment center, that would be 19 trips compared to our 26 that we projected, or 26 in the afternoon compared to the 29 that we projected. That's, so actually, the general warehousing use that we utilized shows the highest potential trip generation out of any of the other warehousing types. So our analysis and our trip generation that we're showing is essentially the most conservative way possible based on the other ITE uses. And without knowing the specific user, that's again why we wanted to use that general warehousing use.
Another question, are you saying that a fire truck would not have to back in?
He could if for some reason they needed to, but physically, it's my experience and estimation that they would physically be able to make that left turn, and that would be the preferred route in, right? They would come in from Passaic up to Access, turn left into the back of the building. So they would not have to back in. They could if they had to for some other reason, but the primary route would just be turning left into the back edge of the site.
Could you repeat that? They would have to back in?
No, they would not have to back in. They would have the ability to make that left turn, head forward into the back area of the site.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mr. Metallo.
I'm not sure, is there anybody available to answer the question, what would be the hours of operation?
Again, it would be within what is permitted by ordinance at this point in time if we don't know the exact end user, which we do not. We'd be taking a guess. But it would be within whatever the hours of operation that are permitted by ordinance. We're obviously stuck by them because we're not seeking a variance for that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Basker.
Mr. Hughes, now these trucks enter onto a common road, there's no name of it,
You're talking about the access
yeah,
in the
the
middle?
access road,
Mhm.
now this is shared by other people as well.
Yeah.
Is that taken into consideration, how many trip charges they have for their businesses, and this could all be accommodated onto this, road?
Right, so we didn't do specific calculations for those uses, but anything that we're generating would be on top of those, right? So we didn't take into specific account with our numbers and our tables, but it's the fact that it's, I think, another industrial user in the back, and then a smaller, somewhat industrial use to our right, looking from Passaic. It is taken into account that the additional traffic from this particular site wouldn't burden the traffic that's already using that access to and from Passaic, because it's going to be minor, insignificant traffic generator.
You don't know what they're generating,
No, we didn't specifically calculate it.
so how could you say
but-
it wouldn't be an impact?
Well, again, they're similar small-scale industrial type uses, so we would anticipate similarly, smaller trip generation calculations for those as well. And again, really all we're looking at is the increase from existing, which includes that traffic. And when we look at that increase, that's where we're getting the conclusion that it will not be a significant impact.
Mr. Chairman,
I understand how you get that, but without the calculation, it's if there's 5 buildings up the road and you're on a common road, you have to take the amount of traffic into consideration.
well,
It's
Mr.
all
Chairman,
up and out onto
if I may.
Passaic Ave.
Mr. Zabo?
Just to provide some context to the discussion about traffic, I want to remind the board, this is a permitted use. And as such, traffic is important from a design point of view. If you want to, for example, restrict left turns, identify needed traffic improvements as a result of volume increases. But because the use is permitted, and I'll defer to Mr. Rego, the case law is basically you buy the traffic with the use as considered by zoning. So it's good information, but it should not be a basis for example, a negative conclusion if that's the only problem that you have with the application. I just wanted to provide that parameter so you understand, you know, the whole context of what you look at.
To the point that the building's oversized on the lot, and that
Well,
doesn't take into account.
The pervious coverage is excessive because they need to.
Which means, obviously, the building.
Oh, I don't know. Wait a minute. I don't even know.
Yeah, so just for context too, the prior application and approval with the assisted living facility, we exceeded the FAR by a significant amount. Here, we don't exceed the FAR. We eliminated that variance. So as far as the building is concerned, I think the building fits perfectly within what's permitted. We do have the height, you know, there is a requirement as height, and we'll discuss the necessity for that when our architect testifies and our planner as well. But as far as the ability and the site suitability for this building, I don't believe it's oversized. The impervious coverage, again, is a result, as we described, as a need for trucks to have to maneuver. But the building itself, we made sure that it was within the parameters of the bulk requirements of the ordinance.
Again, intensity of development is your purview. And if you consider the impervious coverage a measure of intensity, which it is, that's something that they'll have to convince the board, because the burden is on them, that the site is, you know, can still operate and function and can meet the C criteria. The only use variance and the only reason this is here is because of height. It's a D6. And in my report, I outlined the statutory parameters for what you consider for that. But, you know, in terms of traffic, I just wanted to, you know, give you a lane to go through on that. And then impervious is, again, that's another issue.
Thanks. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Marty.
to council, when you compare the assisted living facility to this, you're comparing apples to oranges. It's different use, different types of proofs that were required to obtain that approval. So I can't understand the comparison.
I was simply responding to a suggestion that the building was oversized or was too intense. I was specifically related to the building.
Pardon me?
I was specifically referring to the size of the building itself. It's a modestly sized building for warehouse purposes, and it's not. It meets the bulk requirements other than the height. That's what I was trying to impress upon you. I understand they're completely different applications, and I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. I was trying to respond to the comment by Board Member Baskinger.
Thank you.
Other questions of the traffic expert? Seeing none, I'd like to open it up to the public for anyone who has questions. Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
My next witness is Benjamin Horton. He's an architect with Ben Horton Architecture and Design.
To raise your right hand, please. With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
State your name and spell your last name, please.
My name is Benjamin Horton, Horten. I am with Ben Horton Architecture and Design, located at 312 State Route 10, Randolph, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Can you please provide the board with some of your professional credentials?
Certainly. I received my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree at Carnegie Mellon University. I received my Master of Architecture degree at Yale University. Since I graduated, I cut my teeth working for a big international firm, Canon Design, for several years, and then Gensler for another several years. And then I opened my own firm in 2000. And I've been practicing in New Jersey since 2000. I've testified before this board on the matter of the assisted living facility, as well as a few other applications. I've testified in numerous boards throughout the state. I'm licensed in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, as well as several other states up and down the coast. I have worked on a lot of warehouse projects throughout the state. Some of the recent warehouse projects include about a million square foot project down in Pemberton, as well as a multiple smaller subdivision warehouse projects, as well as throughout this neighborhood in different townships and in the industrial zones. I worked on several of this type of buildings.
Yeah, Mr. Horton, he's been here before. He's acceptable.
Thank you. Thank you. Ben, there's been a lot of discussion about your building. Maybe you could walk us through it a little bit and give us some of the...
Certainly. Generally, these presentations don't take too long because we're building a box, but I'm going to walk you through the drawings we submitted and explain some of the... I'm going to go through some of the questions you were asking about the speculative nature of the building, okay? If I may, all the drawings I'm going to present are the drawings that were submitted to the board. Okay. The first set of drawings I'm going to review is the issue for planning board review dated 8/16/2023, and these were the architectural drawings that were submitted. They included 5 sheets, including the cover page. The first sheet is A201. That is the proposed floor plan. It shows the overall dimension of the building. It's 160 foot 3 inches wide by 137 foot deep front to back. It has 4 bays going left to right and 4 bays going front to back. And again, this building was intended as a speculative warehouse building. And I like to refer to it at times as a flex building. Even though it's kind of smaller, we try to develop the building, plan the building in a way so that it's flexible for multiple users. You may have 1 tenant, 2 tenant, where we have the building set up that we believe we could accommodate up to 3 tenants, possibly 4, like 1 per bay. But ideally, we want to get 1 tenant, possibly 2. But we want the building to be flexible. The more flexible it is, more successful it's going to be for the owners as well as the township, because we want to keep the building as full as possible. The building was, when I said the dimensions, it's 160 foot 3 inches front to back, and then 137 foot left to right, the dimension. On the floor plan, the left side of the plan is the Passaic Avenue facade. So that would be, I refer to that as the front of the building. The back of the building is on my right-hand side of the plan. That's where the loading dock is. Way we try to locate the front door is we located 1 in the middle, a pair of doors in the middle, and 2 at the ends. As well as at the back of the building, you'll see there's 2 exit doors at the back at the 2 corners of the building. In between the 2 exit doors, the man doors, you have 4 overhead doors, and in between the overhead doors, we located future cutouts for overhead doors. Now, typically on a small building like this, having 4 overhead doors plus 1 a drive-in type of overhead door, that's a lot. For this size building, it's a lot. But the reason we did the future overhead doors is because sometimes you never know what a tenant wants. So sometimes the tenants, we might divide the building in half, and the tenant on one side might say, oh, I need another door, maybe one for a compactor or something like that. And we planned it so that the board is aware that we may add that door in the future. And the idea is that, especially with this type of building, we're going to build it out of precast concrete or tilt-up type of concrete structure. You want to pre-plan that so that you could design in the reinforcing. And also, I think we want to try to avoid having to come back to the board to let them know that along that whole back area, we have a plan to accommodate those additional doors if we need that flexibility in the future. As far as the building itself, this is a typical bay. Typically, you want to try to stay within that 40-foot to 50-foot range for this type of warehouse. It gives the interior planning for the racking a little bit more flexibility. We did discuss doing a clear span, but it gets cost prohibitive and makes actually the building a little bit taller because of the structural depth that you need. I'm going to take you to the next drawing, which is the elevation. That's A4.01. the drawing on top is the proposed north elevation, which is the main front facade facing Passaic Avenue. And then the bottom drawing is the west elevation, which is the right side of the building. That would be the side that's facing the access drive. What we're trying to show in this elevation is that building height, when we measure it from the first floor to the roof height, that height is actually 37 foot 1 inches from the first floor to the roof, the highest point of the roof. The parapet itself is going to be 10 inches above that. The actual building height we noted on the left of the drawing is 39 foot 4 inches. The reason you have that 39 foot 4 inches for the building height is where your ordinance is set up is that we have to calculate the average grade. And we measure the actual height of the roof off the average grade to get the building height. So even though the building is 37 foot 1 inches from the first floor to the roof, we have to add in that average grade to get the actual building height. And so working with the Mr. Stewart, he helped us calculate what the average grade is around the building per your ordinance, and then we add the height to that. That's why we ended up with that 39 foot 4 inch height. Just for reference purposes, if you're familiar with the site, if you're standing at the same avenue, you look at that building to the right of us that exists. That's I believe 204.
204 or 202, one of those.
Yeah, building. And I measured I didn't actually measure with the tape, but I actually measured the blocks. It's made out of concrete block. And I measured the number of blocks from the first floor. If you look at the side, slightly around the corner on the right side of the building, you can see the first floor entrance door. You could actually count the number of blocks on the Google Earth view. I counted it and took a measurement, and that height was 37.33 foot from the first floor to the top of the parapet. So it's similar, pretty much the same height as this building, because we're showing 37 foot 1 inch from the first floor to the roof. Our parapet is going to be about 10 inches higher than that. So it's very similar in height, but one thing to keep in mind, our building is set back almost twice the distance of that building. That building is much closer to the street, and our building is going to be set back a little bit further. So even though it's pretty much the same in height, I think the perception of the height is going to be less impactful because the building is set back further. So I think in terms of context, we are similar in height to the building to the right of us. The building to the left of us, that's a one-story building, it's a little bit shorter. The reason really we're asking for that height is because, again, it affects warehouse building. These days, I think in the maybe about 20, 30 years ago, they were building these warehouse buildings with the interior clear height about 20, 25 feet. Nowadays, we're trying to get at least 32 foot clear. In order to get that clearance that we want, we need that roof height because you have to work backwards with the structure of the roof. Typically, you have to accommodate about 4 foot of structure by the time you think about the beam and the truss sizes. And then you have to remember we have to accommodate some space for sprinkler pipes. This is going to be a fully sprinkled building. So with that in mind, we're trying to, the tenant that we spoke of, we do have a prospective tenant, so we're really happy about that. And they really asked us, is there any way you can get that 32-foot height? And we try to push the height up even higher. We talked about it going up higher, but I believe that that 39.33 foot variance that we're requesting, the height that we're asking for, that was similar to the height that we requested with the assisted living. And we didn't want to, we try to keep within that reasonable height. Some of the warehouse buildings that we're doing, like for example, the one I just mentioned to you that was about 1 million square foot, that was like 50, 60 foot tall. Some sections was 50 foot, some sections was 60 foot. But this size building, this is an appropriate scale height that we're going for these days. I think it's going to be competitive if you go with that height. So that's why we're recommending that height. The other thing that we try to show, I'm going to go to the rendering. This is the rendering that we submitted to the board that shows a better view of what the front elevation is going to look like. I think, I know the board is very conscientious of how the building's going to look. You know, even though it's a one-story building, we put some windows on the upper floor, what would be the second floor. But we also try to locate those windows in a way that for example, like if a tenant came in and said, I want to do a small mezzanine up on the second floor, it would be at a height that would be useful as a window. That would work as a second-story window, but it's a one-story building. But we wanted to make it look like a two-story building, so from a neighborhood perspective, it looks nice. You know, that you don't have a big blank wall up on top. And then, in terms of the material, this is, I mentioned to you, we're thinking either precast or tilt-up concrete. That's the type of construction we do for Class A warehouse buildings. Usually buildings that are this small. People are doing it out of block and metal panels, which are less expensive. Not that there's anything wrong with that type of design. It's just that the client wanted to sort of utilize a much nicer looking building type. Again, we did try to dress up the front a little bit more. We used these reveal joints, these shadow lines to modulate the building. That would work with precast and it could work with tilt up. And then we tried to incorporate potential design elements so that in the future, let's say somebody does want to cut out windows. We're going to plan for it just like we did with the back of the building. Potential location for future window and cutout. We're going to design all the reinforcing so that in the future, somebody wants to knock out a window, we could do that without having to, have that much trouble. The next view is the side elevation. We're taking that same theme and some windows in the corner, because that front right corner, you're going to see that from the road. So we wanted to dress that up as well. But as you go back, we went with more blank panels, but we broke up that blankness with some joint lines and some colors that would help break up the facade. The next elevation is the back of the building. And you can see the four loading dock doors that we're proposing. We're showing a typical dock shelter that's going to be around the building with some bumpers. We have the drive-in door on the right rear corner there. And you can see in between each of the overhead doors, there's a space for another one. And the way the overhead doors were spaced out is 12 foot on center, which is the minimum center-to-center spacing that you want for loading dock doors. Any tighter, it doesn't work. And we carefully planned it out so we could accommodate that. Again, it's not that we're going to plan on building it. Generally, building this size, you don't put in that many overhead doors. But it's more for flexibility, because you'll get that one tenant that says, oh, I really need that one door to make the deal work. So we try to be flexible in that respect. And so that's why we have it planned the way it is. But based on my experience, it's highly unlikely we're going to build that many overhead doors. We're just planning for it, so we don't have to come back to the board. Now, in terms of the signage, as you can see on the rendering in the front facade facing Passaic Avenue, we showed two future tenant signs, tenant number 1 and tenant number 2. And we're going to keep it within the sign ordinance. We propose a sign size. Right now, we're suggesting cutout letters that are going to be internally illuminated. I think they're much more attractive, but in terms of the size, we're going to make sure it fits within your ordinance size. We're not asking for any variance on that. Next, I'm going to take you to the monument sign. The monument sign, this sheet here, it shows that the overall height from the ground to the top of the sign is approximately 6 foot high, and the width of it is 6 foot wide. The first 3 feet of it is the actual base. And, obviously we wanted the base to raise the sign up, and so we could have some foundation planting around the base. The sign itself, it's actually the same size and same shape that we proposed when we did the assisted living. We just took the same size and geometry and then incorporated potential for up to 3 signs, because realistically, we're probably not going to have 3 tenants, but we believe that we could accommodate these sign sizes that are still legible from the street. There's no variances. The actual sign size total is 34.83 square feet, and that includes the entire pylon and base. And we're proposing that the sign is going to be internally illuminated. So that's it. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Questions from board members for the architect? Mr. Vitale?
Mr. Horton, is it anticipated what are you planning for HVAC?
We anticipate that if we do have air conditioning, we're going to do a small package unit on top of the roof. And we'll usually set that back away from the front edge of the building so it's not visible from the street.
And with a 10-foot parapet, it wouldn't be visible probably?
The parapet is 10 inches, not 10
Oh,
foot.
you said 10 inches.
Yeah, yeah. Typically, we'll set it back several feet from, at minimum, you have to set the unit back at least 10 foot from the edge, otherwise you have to provide guardrail. But generally, we're gonna set it back a little bit further.
Well, wouldn't that increase the height of the building?
Generally, the mechanical unit doesn't get calculated into the building height, and there is a allotment for minimum, I believe, I don't remember off the top of my head, Mr. Burry, do you know what the allotment is for the mechanical units?
Yeah, if you just give me a moment.
Yeah, I believe if they get much larger than a certain size, they're considered more like a penthouse, and then that would get calculated into the heights. But most mechanical units, like the ones that I would expect in these units, are slightly maybe larger than what you might find in your house, because we'll do a couple small package unit. So generally, they'll sit on a curb that might be about 4 or 5 feet high. So altogether, you're looking at 6, 7 feet high at most.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Iannetta.
Mr. Orton, so you're, basically what you're saying is line of sight from the street. The units will probably not be visible, and if they are, it'd be negligible, am I correct?
That's correct, that's correct. And we had past conversations, especially on main roads, the visibility of these units. And my opinion's been always strong with these big warehouse-type buildings. If you put rooftop screening on these things, it just creates more of an eyesore because it makes it look bigger than it is. These units are typically relatively compact. As I said, they're like, think of it in order of like 4 or 5 feet wide, maybe 7 feet high at most with the curb. And they might be like 6 feet deep. You know, they're small units, you know. As soon as you start putting a rooftop screen on it, you gotta, you know, almost triple the size of the width of that. And then usually you have to set it away from the unit to provide airflow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for the architect?
This here, let's say you're gonna have refrigerated goods in there
Yes, sir.
for a warehouse. Those units are gonna be substantially bigger than an air conditioning one, am I correct?
Oh, that's a very good point. If they do air condition, refrigerated warehousing spaces, those will require larger units, typically chillers on the roof. But we would, again, we could work with the town engineering department to set those units back far enough so that they don't become a visual nuisance.
Those chillers are about how many feet high?
Well, some of them are actually like fan type of units that are actually lower than the package units, but they might be longer.
Lower than the AC units?
Yeah.
Even the ones with the words that come through it?
Well, we wouldn't use like like when we do big manufacturing facility with big chillers, they tend to be pretty big, like for creating chilled water for process equipment. They could get pretty large. We actually just did one for in Rockaway for a client, and we put that behind the building on the ground. But for refrigerated equipment, a lot of times we'll put the condensers on the roof with fan units. They tend to be similar in size to those package units, not really that much bigger.
And they'll be set towards the back of the
Yeah,
building?
and we'll plan those out in a way that definitely minimizes the visual impact, you know. And I think if we do get a tenant like that, we'll definitely you know, keep that reasonable. And if it gets to a certain height, I'm sure your engineering department will flag it and say, look, this is getting beyond the minimum allowed
Mr.
size.
Chairman, if I may, through the chair, it doesn't appear that it is calculated into the building height, but there is a requirement under 45-12.9, enclosure of roof structures, mechanical equipment, including equipment located on the roof and structural supports, shall be concealed by structures which are integrally designed with the building. The applicant isn't proposing anything at the moment because it's not known. They would have to comply with that. it may be a good idea to plan that out now, how that would be achieved in case they do need it, so that they don't have to come back if there's a variance, because they're setting it back unenclosed. We need to have that discussion, because it could be an issue later. We might as well deal with it now.
I could stipulate as a condition that we could set back the units, any rooftop units, so that, working with the town engineering department, that they'll be set back sufficiently so they don't become a visual disturbance from the street.
They can provide sight line elevations and sections to show that, but technically need a variance from that. We could add it to the list because they're not proposing enclosure. But if you don't see it, it's maybe a better planning alternative. It's up for the board.
Like what Mr. Horton said, sometimes you put them up, they make the building look bigger, but you're gonna have to request a variance for us to give you if our ordinance says there's enclosures and you're not gonna ask for any.
I think we should.
Otherwise, you're gonna have to come back because you're not asking for it, and we're trying to avoid that in case the board is inclined to approve this.
If it turns out it's a better option to screen them, which we probably think it would not be.
Yeah.
We'd rather not do that. So we would ask for a variance here if the board's inclined to
All right,
grant.
so if we add that to the variance list,
yeah.
but is there, Steve, is there an allotted amount of height allowed for the units, and then after that?
No, there's no reference to that. And the building height's not calculated with the units at all. And
So
there's no mention of that.
So if they did have a big company that's gonna come in and wanna get freezers in there, and the units do get quite large, there's no recourse, there's no height that will tee off something to have them come back to us.
No,
and
there
ask
wouldn't
for
be
more.
height, but I guess the zoning officer would review, and if he doesn't believe it's in compliance with that one section that John had just read about it being screened at a
Yeah, but if we
with
give them the
integral,
variance,
that he
if we
could.
give the variance, then they're in compliance by just putting whatever they want to put up there.
Yes,
and
yeah,
there's
if
no
you grant the
screening.
variance now. If you don't, he would have, he would evaluate whether or not it would require that variance.
But the standard, Mr. Chairman, would be visibility from the right-of-way, from adjoining properties. And if they can't meet that, then they'd have to come back.
Oh, okay, so there is
Yeah, I
something
think
that-
that's
there is
really what
something
you're
that
trying to
would tee
achieve,
off
right?
Coming back here.
Correct.
So your client would understand that as long as the site view from the right-of-way is clear, then you're good. And if it's not gonna be, you have to, and your site plan, your sight line plan
Okay.
shows that you can see it from the right-of-way, then you'd have to come back.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best we could do, and I think that's acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a condition of approval that could be
Yeah,
enforced
that's-
on.
I'm comfortable with that. A couple quick things. We're very passionate about getting examples of the exteriors on our buildings. First of all, the color scheme. You're committing to the white and you're committing to the blue. Your accent color A is blue, your accent color B is a darker blue.
Yes, sir.
For the white building. Can you commit to those color schemes? And if they need to change, you might have to come back. Because drastically, if you rented it out or it was ever sold to a Baskin Robbins, I don't want to see, orange, pink, and red stripes down the building all the way around. So you commit to these colors, and if it changes, you'd have to come in.
I think that's fair, yeah.
Yeah, as long as
White
the
with the
architect.
two-tone blues.
Yeah.
Two-tone blue panels.
As long as you
Yeah.
think that you can commit to that long-term,
Yes,
that's
we,
fine.
we actually studied the color quite a bit with the client, and this is the color we settled on, that we liked. So at this point, I'm committed to it, and so is the client.
That's why he wore that suit tonight, because it
Yeah,
matches
there you go.
the color of
There
the
you go.
proposed building.
I thought it was spring. I didn't realize it was gonna be winter today.
I thought he wore the suit because we're on YouTube for the first time ever, but okay.
He looks, either way, he looks good.
I hate to see him with McDonald's. I mean, that would be.
Yeah.
With the precast and the tilt up and what these panels are gonna be, can you submit as a condition, an example of what the materials are gonna look like, Mr. Burry, so we can have them? We do like to steal people's, sample sheets just to have in case they build it differently when.
Yeah, my recommendation with this building, because when we talk about concrete,
Yeah.
And these colors that you see, they use what's called concrete stain, which is basically glorified paint. It's designed to absorb into the concrete, so it kind of stains it, so it doesn't peel readily like a paint, but in effect, it's a paint. So pretty much, we could match the paint to the color that you see on this on the drawings. We could actually, if you like, pick out actual paint chips, like a Benjamin Moore paint chip, and say these are the paint colors we're gonna utilize, and we can match almost exactly that
So
color.
even the accent pieces that you have are gonna be made of the same material, that the blue is gonna be made of the same material as the white, it's just gonna be colored differently.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chairman?
Yeah, Marty.
Mr. Berry made a specific request in his report. Samples of building materials should be supplied for board review.
Right.
And I think at some point, the variance should be conditioned upon them being submitted to Mr. Berry as our engineer.
If I may, I'll submit paint chips that we're gonna match, that will represent the color. The exact color, almost any manufacturer would be able to match that color that we're asking for. So that's the way I would propose. Now, to get an actual piece of concrete and then color it, that becomes a little bit
So they're not building it with any kind of aluminum or any kind of siding or something of quality that they can have a sheet for us. It's gonna be an applied concrete, and they're gonna paint.
Yeah, this was my last application for Starbucks, where they're gonna use this wood and this metal panel, so I was able to get that. But these concrete panels, it's a little harder to get.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, do the paint chips then, and we've committed to the colors. I think that's pretty good for the exterior.
Thank you.
Could you please tell me why one of the plans here called for future mezzanine? And I want to know, with that future mezzanine, whether or not all of your square footage has been measured to the future mezzanine, or it hasn't, and if the mezzanines go in, that's going to increase the square footage and everything else.
Yes, tough questions.
Yeah, I know. I figured it was going to be. What page I saw the future mezzanine. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what we're saying, yeah. We have had Counselor, we have had, yeah, we have had occasion many times where people put mezzanines in their buildings, and that changes a lot of the statistics.
As I explained on the elevation drawing, that's where the word future mezzanine line, that elevation of 14 foot above the first floor, I put that on there. We use that to justify the second floor window location, so it's not just there for affectation. Right now, we're not proposing any mezzanines.
Okay.
If, right now, my understanding of the ordinance is that we're asking for the total square footage of the building, which is noted on the floor plan of,
Well, it's,
22,590
yes,
something,
that's not, that's the footprint of the building.
21,954.
Yeah.
21.9, that's the. Whoops. That was on TV too, right?
We'll edit that out. We'll edit that out.
That square footage is what we're requesting, and not any more FAR than that. If we do build a mezzanine and we exceed the FAR that we put on the plan that you're approving, we would have to come back to the board.
So it's not part of this application, it's just there, maybe.
Yeah, on the elevation drawings, I only noted that future mezzanine elevation point to help justify the window location. So that, again, it's not just a window there for affectation, that it would be actually useful if somebody did build a mezzanine.
So if anybody builds a mezzanine, John, if anybody builds a mezzanine, it increases the square footage and they have to come back.
Well, it affects parking, but if it complies, yeah, no, I don't know.
Well, I was gonna say,
gonna
correct
affect
me
parking.
if I'm wrong, you're 31 required, 31 provided in parking spaces right now. So presumably, if you add the mezzanine, you're gonna add a parking requirement, and then you'd be looking at a parking variance.
As far as the FAR is concerned, on the site plan drawing, we're right now proposing 0.25 FAR, where 0.35 is allowed. We're substantially under the
I
allowable
was gonna just
FAR.
say that.
Okay.
They may
I'm not
be
sure
able
what
to-
the procedural requirement is if a tenant came in and said, Mr. Berry, I'd like to put in a mezzanine, and then it went above and beyond this FAR. Typically, it's gonna trigger additional parking possibly, and if you can't accommodate it, I would think we would have to come in front of the
Well,
board.
if you exceed FAR, it's a use variance.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
But they have pretty decent amount of room in FAR right now.
they have 10%, they probably could grow to that point, may not need to, you wouldn't wanna, I guess, you need the roof height for the warehouse, the ceiling height, so the mezzanine can be expanded to at least 10%, and then we gotta figure out what that does to parking.
Okay, so it's just not a future mezzanine option of theirs to do whatever they want to do.
No, they would have to.
Okay. I'm
And again, I
happy,
think,
I'm happy with
yeah,
that.
the big purpose is so that we don't have to try to cut into the building, which is the precast concrete at a later point in time, to the extent we wanted to.
Absolutely.
Even if we came and got a variance, we don't wanna, the construction would be too difficult
Yeah,
to plan for it down the road. So
Yeah.
that's really the reason why we're trying to make all the,
Mr. Chairman,
assumptions.
there's nothing preventing the applicant from returning to the board with an additional request.
Sure,
You know,
yeah.
I mean,
And,
it's their right if they wanna do that.
Mr. Hughes, one of my last things is the, half of the fire department's report has to do with alarms meeting subcode, sprinklers, FDC, roof and floor truss signs, knock boxes. You'll be part of that plan to
Yeah, it'll
make
be
the
a
fire
fully
department
sprinkled
happy
building.
and get a
Yes,
pass.
sir.
Okay. Any other questions of the architect?
Chairman, I have a question. Since we're on the elevation in front of the building, I read somewhere in the report that a generator was gonna be put in the front of the building because you couldn't fit it in the back of the building. Can you tell me where in that picture it's gonna be?
Yeah, there was a comment on that, that might be,
I don't see it anywhere on that picture there.
Back in the original assisted living facility?
there's a transformer.
Yeah. I think that's shown on the site plan, right? Yeah.
Okay. Is there gonna be any generators or anything on it? Because here's my question here, I'm going
Yes, sir.
back to food again.
Mhm.
And if that building does get taken over at someone, you're gonna need some kind of backup.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Where would that wind up? In front of the building, like where the transformers would be, or?
Right now, we're not proposing any, but I would say if they did get a tenant that was coming in, I would urge them to put it in the back of the building.
There's enough room in the back then for it?
Yeah, because we have all those spaces available, right, for future loading dock. We could certainly utilize one of those, but I would think if we do put a new generator on the outside, it's not on the site plan now, that we would have to come back for it. We, like.
Put it on the roof.
I don't know if this township has ability to put generators.
No, I was gonna say, the application actually includes a request for a variance for ground-mounted equipment in the front yard. And they're only allowed in the side and rear yard. And that's shown on the site plan,
For the
off on the left side and, I don't know, maybe on the left side of the parking lot in the front.
Yeah, so I think if you do a generator,
So there is a generator proposed.
no,
and
we're not
it's all-
proposing a generator
You're-
right now.
You're not, okay, then maybe so you're not asking for the variance for a generator in the front yard, because I believe there's one shown on the site plan.
We were not
There's
asking.
a transformer show.
There's a transformer.
Oh,
not a
transformer,
generator. Yeah.
okay, not a generator, okay.
Yeah. I think that's the pad in the front left corner of the building. Just in the,
Is that existing there already?
this is the site plan SP 105, which Mr. Stewart had pointed to. In the front left corner, you see there's a little concrete pad shown next to the sidewalk. That's the proposed future transformer location, because we believe we may bring the electric service from the street right into that corner. So that'll be the most logical place to put it.
questions?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman. Where would the potentially additional 5 bays be? Could you show me on the, your? Yes.
If I could take you to the rear rendering, elevation rendering. So if you're standing at the back of the building, looking at that elevation, you could see, on the right side of this rendering, there's the drive-in doors, and you can see the 4 dock doors. We have it planned out so that in between each of the dock doors and the drive-in door will be the additional potential location.
Thank you.
Other questions of the architect? Hearing none, I'd like to open it up to the public for questions. Seeing none. Thank you, Mr.
Great, thank you very much.
My last witness is John Tykina. He is a professional planner with All Things Planning and Development LLC.
With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
Could you state your name and spell your last name, please?
My name is John Tykina, T as in Thomas, A-I, K as in Kelly, I-N as in Nicholas A. I'm the principal and owner of All Things Planning and Development in South Brunswick, New Jersey. I have been a planner for the last 32 years since I completed my studies at Rutgers University. I've had the pleasure of keeping my license for the last 32 years as well. They tell me that's the challenge. I've spent most of my career testifying before planning boards and zoning boards around the state of New Jersey, just like this one. I've actually never been here, though, which is somewhat strange. But I have been to more than 150 boards around the state, and I have had the pleasure of participating in over 12 million square feet of warehouse development approvals, including the first 1 million square foot building in New Jersey and the first Amazon fulfillment center in New Jersey. So I'm very, very familiar with the warehouse industry.
Just again, this is not 1 million square feet. We're only talking about.
Far from it.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer his credentials.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Accepted.
Thank you. John, if you could take us through your planning testimony, please.
Great. So I'm not going to repeat anything that was said. I try to make it a point of that. We've already talked about the different relief that we need. In terms of our relief, we need a height variance for 39.33 feet. We need a parking in front of the building variance. That's a C variance. Permitted impervious coverage of 61.9%, and ground-mounted equipment in the front yard.
John, excuse me 1 second. 2 things, your last name, Taikina?
That is correct.
Okay, we have a report from Christine Cafone, who's a regular here. Are you filling in for her tonight?
Yes, I'm filling in for Ms. Cafone. We are affiliated entities.
Okay.
I would say we fill in for each other on the order of about 4 or 5 times a month.
Okay.
So obviously, if she wrote this, you have complete knowledge of it?
Yes.
And all the facts?
I have reviewed it. Frankly, it's sitting in front of me with my name on the top of it. So they said my name right, and here I can.
They don't look alike. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And I apologize, my grandkids got me sick, so I'm going to kind of swallow the microphone a little bit. So first, I'll talk about the D6 variance. Then I'll talk about the bulk variances, and then finally the special reasons and the negative criteria, which would apply to all of the variances. So in terms of the height variance, the standard is a case called Grasso v. the Borough of Spring Lake. It's a balancing test for the board. Does the site remain appropriate for the proposed use, even though we're asking for 4.33 extra feet, and we don't comply with the ordinance height limits? So we've heard testimony about the nature of the warehousing industry, that 32 feet is really almost the minimum that modern users are looking for, and very, very specifically looking for in terms of providing for efficient stacking and providing for efficient sprinkler coverage. And I'm very glad that Mr. Horton mentioned that. So there is actually a fire safety element to the height as well. And this, combined with the structure, drives the variance in the overall height of the building. The additional height
again, is really for the roof structure and the sprinkler equipment. Your own reexamination report in 2022 specifically stated that the township should reexamine its building height limitations for light industrial and warehouse buildings to reflect the current trend of taller building heights for such uses. So, not surprised that that Burgess Associates would be thinking ahead. It's my experience with them also for the last 32 years that they typically are. So, not a surprise there, but that'll be very helpful when we look at our negative criteria. It is an appropriate request given it's generally consistent with the character of the surrounding area. Again, Mr. Horton testified about the building next door, and we are more than twice the distance back from the road, a little over 100 feet. When viewed in light of the proposed attractive architecture, the additional building height will not degrade the building, the appearance of the area at all. So I believe the site remains suitable for the use, even though the proposal does not comply with the ordinance height limits, specifically due to that significant setback, the attractive look of the building, and the additional landscaping that is being proposed in the front. In terms of the bulk variances, we believe these are C1 variances and C2 variances. C1 that relates to the irregular shape of the site that guides the land development. It's somewhat of a pie-shaped site, narrow at the front, wider at the back. This creates a hardship as it relates to locating parking on the site. It's more efficient to have it in the front. It works efficiently for the location of the office, and most appropriately to put the loading docks in the rear of the building. In terms of for that reason, we think the parking can be in the front of the building. The ground-mounted equipment, again, as Mr. Horton said, we'll likely pull that electric right off of Passaic Avenue, run an underground to that transformer. The electric company wants to run that line as short as possible to get it into the transformer. We're actually going to be fortunate that we'll be able to get it back close to the building, so we'll have sufficient space that it's not going to be right up on the road. And then finally, the C2, the proposed impervious coverage. We think that this is a better planning alternative to provide for appropriate truck circulation around the building for both our tractor trailers going to be accessing the building and for the fire department. I'm very glad that Connor talked about the fire truck absolutely being able to turn into the back of the building. There won't be any concern there at all from my experience in reviewing these from a planning standpoint. So I believe it's a better planning alternative to have that additional coverage to provide for appropriate circulation for this permitted use. In terms of the special reasons that they are necessary for the variances, I'd submit to you that there are three. G, to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses according to their respective environmental requirements in order to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. And M, to encourage coordination of the various public and private procedures and activities shaping land development with a view towards lessening the cost of such development and to the more efficient use of the land. The proposed uses of the property is consistent with the character of the area. The proposal is an efficient use of the land. This amount of coverage, and we are under the building coverage for the zone. I'd also submit that getting about 11,000 square feet of warehouse space per acre of land is actually just over what I would almost consider the minimum criteria. You want to make sure you get at least 10,000 per acre. And typically for the larger buildings, we're getting closer to 15 or 16,000 per acre. So it is certainly an efficient use of this relatively small piece of property. I think Mr. Horton has certainly designed an attractive building. It is one of the more attractive small warehouses that I've seen, and it does look like an office building. And in being up and down Passaic Avenue over the last few days, the town does have a history of really creating nice looking development along Passaic. I had noted a self-storage building that I also thought looked like an office building. So again, fitting in with the attractive visual environment. And there is sufficient space on the site to accommodate it. I think we're doing a nice job using the existing driveway that's there to access both our parking and our loading. The site's designed with safe and efficient circulation, and will promote a free flow of traffic. And we will have appropriate stormwater management, meeting all of the NJDEP and township requirements for major development. And then finally, in terms of negative criteria, first and foremost, is it going to have a substantial detriment to public good? This is not a noxious use. It's a permitted use, a warehouse use. It is well-designed. It's attractive. Be very, very low impact, as our traffic engineer testified. I would be very surprised if it was split up. 22,000 feet would be a perfect for a startup company that's going to come in here and start and likely move on to bigger and better things. But perfect size for a startup company to get going. Very nice that we're providing for the flexibility with the possibility for additional docks, possibility for additional windows, et cetera, all of which recognize the good design. In terms of not substantially impairing the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the master plan, the township ordinances it really mimic the municipal land use law in terms of preventing overcrowding of land, regulating the location, height of buildings, et cetera. We don't believe it will have any detriment to that purpose. The proposal will conserve the value of property and encourage the most appropriate use. There is no stated purpose for the L1 zone, but again, we're permitted use advancing that. And finally, in terms of the township master plan, we're looking to maintain and enhance the existing areas of stability, encourage proper distribution of land uses by designated areas with uniform development characteristics. And finally, in number 7, to encourage new development or redevelopment of properties to take into account the aesthetic character of the community in an effort to enhance the visual and aesthetic appearance of the municipality. And I think in looking at the example right behind me, it is certainly an attractive use that we fit in very, very well on Passaic Avenue, well landscaped, excellently designed. And I believe the board has the ability to make the requisite findings, that it will comply with the MLUL and applicable case law and have no detriment to the township of Fairfield. And I'm available for your questions.
Questions for the planner? I have a couple. Although this is a D, you don't have to achieve the Medici standards because your use is allowed in the zone, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you feel as though the surrounding area, the grades of the property, you feel as though the height variance is accommodated by the surrounding buildings? Comfortable with that?
Yes, the building, as we testified, immediately adjacent to us is almost half the distance of us from the road at approximately the same height, and we're set back over 100 feet. So any additional height, it's not going to be noticed at all.
And the one thing is, I think you testified to it a few minutes ago, but you know, in Cafone's report, she said that she felt as though it would promote a desirable visual environment. My note was better than a residential, question mark. But with the style that do you feel as though, I think you said something about it, a warehouse that looks like an office building, you feel as though it's going to fit in the community and look natural on the street?
Yes, I think it's going to look like Passaic Avenue, and it's not a residential zone, so for an L1 zone, I think that's a very attractive looking warehouse building.
It isn't residential. You're right.
The fact
about the variance
right.
For the nursing home. Is that? Yeah.
It's an L1.
Yeah. All right. I was thinking about the nursing home. What would look better, this or the nursing home? But I get it. You're right. Okay, cool. Anybody else have questions for the planner? Seeing none, I'd like to open it up to the public. Seeing no questions, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Feel better.
Appreciate it. And Wagner 1, 7269. Go see
Oh,
my son's.
Counselor, I do have one thing that I forgot. As far as the engineer is concerned, I'd like to talk sidewalks in the front. There's some damaged sidewalk, and I don't know if it's complete. And as things change in our town with the gym there and different things there, I'd like to see what the idea would be about getting a condition of approval to fix those and to run the sidewalks across the front. Steve, the sidewalks run all the way across the front right now, or no?
Yeah, I was just out there today. There's an old substandard sidewalk there, but I think your site plan is not showing that being replaced. I'm not sure if the Essex County has chimed in at all, looking for that to be redone, but I think the question is to replace that sidewalk.
There is a sidewalk, yeah.
Yeah, there is an existing one, and I don't think
Kinda
we'd want it
beat up.
removed, would want it, it's kind of beat up.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how wide it is. It's overgrown.
Is it asphalt or concrete?
It's concrete, but I think vegetation has been,
It's coming,
right.
it's on a slant.
Yeah.
Up and down, I mean, I walked it today, meant to say something, it's pretty beat up, especially with cars that are gonna be parked that close to the street, if somebody wants to get out and walk around or something.
And I'm not sure if you're gonna be grading in the area with that basin, that it's gonna not gonna be in great shape for a pedestrian by the time you're all done.
Yeah, well, I think we should just replace it, that's all. I mean, it's in bad shape, and it's the front of our property, so.
Let him say it.
Yeah, he said it, not you, Counselor. Yeah.
I know nothing.
Well, you know what, we'll
Client's
take,
not gonna pay my bill now.
well, no, we'll take Chuck off, we'll take Chuck off the hook, because it's very important to us to have those sidewalks, so how's that?
All right.
So condition of approval that you'll replace and repair and or replace the sidewalks in the front.
Yeah, pending county approval. And while we got you there, a couple other things I didn't mention. These are just stormwater ordinance requirements, but I think we need a maintenance plan submitted, and a part of that is an annual maintenance.
Sure,
You know,
operation
it just
and
says a
maintenance
condition of approval.
Without-
That's in the regulation at
I
any
already
rate.
did one, so I could just
Okay.
send you that.
I don't think the profile's low. Yeah, Mr.
I have one more
Baskin.
question for the engineer. I don't think we addressed this, but on the fireman's report, they requested a fire hydrant. I know the other items are all kind of per code, so we really didn't talk about every one of them.
Right.
But I don't believe that a fire hydrant is code, and I don't know if they agree to be putting one towards the rear of the property like they asked.
We do agree to that.
Okay, well, you could make that a condition, subject, a fire hydrant in the back that the fire department's asking for. I mean, the fire department could maybe not give them the approval if they really want it, but we might as well note it.
Can we, I don't really have an issue with it, because we're gonna put it in if they require it, but my only thought was that we could just make it subject to fire department approval, in case there's any change of that location when we're dealing with them. You know, if they turn around and say they would like something different, you know, again, we want their approval.
What do you think about that?
What, per the fire department?
Yeah, just make it instead of putting it as a condition in case they want it moved or changed or something else, let the fire department,
Yeah.
because they've mentioned
They
it,
have to
they've
comply
talked
with
about
the-
wanting it.
Yeah, they can
It-
comply with
They're gonna have to get an acceptable response from
Right,
the
the only
fire
reason I make
department.
that suggestion, otherwise I just say yes, but since we're gonna have to go back to them with a revised set of plans with the
Right.
turning, there might be more dialogue, and I just don't want us to get tripped up down the road.
Subject to the fire department's.
Okay.
Yeah, because we already said we'll do it, but if they want to make some changes, we'll accommodate those most likely.
Chuck, one more thing, Rich was, Mr. Travato was talking about the easement that's in front. How's the sewer easement, is that gonna affect the sidewalks in any way?
No, the sidewalk's in front of that.
Okay, all right, cool. Thanks, Chuck. And again, tell your client we were really harping on those sidewalks. Any other question? No, we don't have any more questions. I'm gonna. Do I close first or do I? That's the people, yeah. Anybody, any comments from the audience that'd like to come up now and make any comments or statements regarding this application? Seeing none, back to you, Counselor.
Do you want to sum up, or?
Yeah, just quick, a couple brief points as I was taking some notes throughout the testimony of the professionals. Again, you know, we discussed the D6 variance. We understand it's important for the market conditions. There's really no buildings that are designed these days on warehouse-type buildings that are any lower. And, you know, I thought one of the most important things of our application, you know, is that there's going to be an improvement in the stormwater. I understand from being here, Chuck does as well, from being in front of this board and the planning board on numerous occasions, that impervious surface is a concern of this town. We understand there's a lot of flooding here, but the testimony was there will be an improvement from the existing condition. We're gonna meet the standards, there are gonna be basins, so there really should be no issue there as far as, you know, from a design development standpoint. And again, I think this is a fairly modest size industrial building. We put the parking in the back, we put the loading in the back in order to try to, you know, minimize the impact of having trucks visible from Passaic Ave, and instead we get to look at this, what I think is an attractive building. I think the board seems to agree. So with all that said, I won't reiterate any more of the testimony, and I just would ask that this board, you know, vote to approve our application.
Thank you. Bring it back to the board for discussion and/or a motion. This property has been empty, it's vacant, it's been a thorn in our side for a long time, all the way going back to Panico, or whatever his name was, when he wanted to do that big bar, salon with the waterfalls, and that never happened. And then the seniors housing, I think that it's difficult to first look at and think about a warehouse on Passaic Avenue, but I think the quality of the architecture, the design of it, I think it does fit. I think the planner gave a good, you know, Christine Cafone and her substitute tonight did a very decent job in saying that it does blend, and I'll be in favor of this tonight. So, just anyone else have anything they'd like to say, or someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Metallo.
Application 2023-22, Courtyard Gardens, 12 Passaic Ave. Block 2201, lot 15. I make a motion to approve the application for variances as discussed tonight, and based on the conditions that have also been discussed and will be enumerated by Mr. Rego.
I can do it now, or I'll put it in the resolution, obviously. If you want them verbally now, I can do that.
I don't need it now, but if any other board member wants before I second it.
At the next meeting.
Okay?
Yeah. No, I think we're okay with the resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll put everything in.
All right, do I have a second? Second. Mr. Travato is the second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mariano,
Yes.
Mr. Honorata,
Yes.
Mr. Metallo,
Yes.
Mr. Baskinger,
Yes.
Mr. Travato,
Yes.
Mr. Carmagnola,
Yes.
Chairman Lepari.
Yes. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Stays, right? You guys want
We have one more piece of new business tonight, but Mr. Kiaya, we're gonna take a 5 or so minute break, okay? And then we'll be back. All right, we're gonna take a break.
What's that? Make sure the microphones are off. Mr. Berry? Do me a favor, and just so you know, we're streaming, we're live, even during the break. Do me a favor, just hit the microphone off. Yeah.
Thank you.
Emergency, Steve.
Right, okay. Oh, that's what it. I thought it was more than.
Put something through my hand.
Just so you know, everything's still on, even though we're on break.
Nice car. I could.
Steve, somebody said, yeah, I like this guy. Said, there's no,
What guy? What guy? What guy? That guy? I've been called worse. Just ask Lou. Of all people.
years ago.
Your best buds?
It's so small. It's so small. They sold it out.
And then we lose everything.
Sold it out.
No.
My sister and brother and other sister.
Yeah, I'm afraid to mess with that right now. So I don't know. Okay, good. Goodbye.
We used to get together, God rest his soul, Sal. We used to have a membership night once a year. He sent out letters to all professionals. Let me ask you, invite them to the meeting. At that time, we had finances to pay. Radisson. Nationwide, how many members are there here? 57. So, bringing women in was supposed to double the size of unit. That's what they said. That's why I was sorry about you. It's always been 6,000. Never go any greater than 6,000. Question becomes, would it be 6,000? When they were just men, 6,000. So God rest his soul, my good buddy Renato talked about that. Buddy Renato, he wanted to. That's where I wrote. Where's the National Convention going to be this year? That's what happened when I was president. Hershey, Pennsylvania. Harvard? Yeah. They actually
No respect for Patino.
No. Big East got
Just 3 teams.
It's a new day.
Yeah, please.
Next application tonight is 2023-5, Daniel Cica, 81 Cica Ave, block 10.01, lot 1.02, requesting major site plan C variance and D variance. Mr. Moreno?
I will have to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. Are you?
Mr. Chairman, I would have to recuse myself also.
Thank you, sir. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. Gentlemen, have a good night.
Okay, so tonight with those excusing, Marty is out, Mr. Toniolo is out, Mr. Iania and Mr. Ivorone will be voting members on this application. Counselor, how are you tonight?
Good evening, Chairman, and good evening, members of the board.
You can, fire up the microphone again? Great. Oops, yeah.
We'll start this again. So, good evening, Chairman Lepari and members of the Honorable Board. Mr. Burry, Mr. Zabo, and Mr. Rego. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Cica, application number 2023-5, 81 Passaic Avenue, block 1801, lot 1.02. I have 3 witnesses, my client Danny Cica, and 2 expert witnesses. Both of them have been qualified and testified before the Fairfield Planning Board, which is evident in a 2018 resolution of the Fairfield Planning Board. That Planning Board resolution is how the building got built at 81 Passaic Avenue. So the application here is for a building that's already been built. There are some finishing touches that are required, and we'll get into that tonight. But the building is there, and these 2 experts are architect
Joe Donato, and our engineer and planner, James Mastronardi. Both of them have testified in Fairfield before. Right now, the second floor of the building is designed to be a showroom for the company, and the offices are downstairs. What we're seeking to do is put one single bedroom apartment where the second floor showroom is. So that way, it would only be an office and showroom on the first floor, and upstairs would be one single family, one bedroom apartment. And it's planned that Mr. Cica's father will live there. We're not proposing to build any new structures, and therefore, I think this application might be more appropriate, if it pleases the board, for me to get right into the experts' comments letters. I have 4 of them. I have a traffic report, a fire report, engineer report, and a planning report. Maybe it's appropriate I just get right into that, and that might bring out some questions, and then we could have our experts respond, if that pleases the board.
Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, we're gonna, I mean, are you going to, are you gonna ask any questions of the owner right now? Is that your plan, or your plan is to go into your experts first?
My plan was to accept all the 4 letters that came to us from traffic, fire, engineering, and planning are generally acceptable to the applicant, almost entirely. So I was going to see if we could pinpoint this application, since we're not showing you like a proposed building that's going to be built brand new. So that was, normally I would have an expert run you through the site, have the architect explain the building, but the building's already there. We're just looking to change one floor. So it's up to the board as well. I was trying to be
John, if I
direct.
could recommend,
Please.
with regard to the reports, the 4 reports, you've told us that predominantly you're okay with them and your client's okay with the recommendations. If you're gonna start with the reports, if the board feels that that's okay, why don't you just tell us what you don't agree with? Hopefully that'll be minimal, and then we can just discuss that and then move on.
I think that's
Otherwise,
appropriate.
we assume that the reports are satisfactory.
That's perfect. Traffic report is satisfactory, no comment. Fire department report. It's just, we comply with everything, and we don't think the last comment is applicable. It says, if there is a truss construction, then proper signage shall be installed. Well, there is no truss construction in this. That's the only comment on the fire report, not applicable on the last comment.
So, so you would agree to a condition of approval that any items that, because right now the fire report is denied, correct? Okay, so you would make a condition of approval that you will satisfy the fire department, and they'll get an approval of the site in general with whatever on the inside or outside they deem they need to have.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we have the 2 others.
The police report, the police report is pretty simple, right? Police report, the property will need to have a sign placed to allow no.
He said he agreed with that.
Oh, they agree with it.
Traffic safety,
Okay.
you're okay with?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That was the first one.
So
Yep.
we're down to Steve's and John's reports.
With regard to the variances, the pre-existing variances, and the new ones that were outlined by Mr. Burry, the one that we want to comment on is with regard to utilizing paving stones where all off-street parking areas shall be surfaced with asphalt, bituminous, or cement binder pavement. And he goes on to explain that it may not be appropriate because it may not be impervious enough. And I checked the definition of impervious on the Fairfield ordinance, and paver stones are defined there as impervious surface. We think that it's an upgrade to having asphalt or concrete or bituminous cement, so that we would think if there's going to be a variance there, that it's a moot point. If there's not going to be a variance, we suggest that it meets the code anyway. With regard to the architect revisions, it's true that the one-bedroom apartment is on the second floor. It's true that the ground floor will be utilized for offices, and there will be, part of that offices is to have showroom as well. And with regard to the reference to an 18-foot high roll-up garage door, the actual size of the door is 14 feet high. That's with regard to Mr. Burry's comments on the architectural revisions. On the site plan revisions, this harkens back to the planning board resolution. And we're proposing to, on the first one, warehouse portion on the first floor must be clearly and safely demised from the interior parking area, and we're proposing striping for that. We're okay on servicing vehicles, we're okay on the next one.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Would you explain what you said and meant when you said striping? What's going to be striped?
A delineation between areas that are for parking and areas that are for storage on the floor plan inside the warehouse.
Have you ever seen pavers striped?
Well,
He's talking about the inside right now.
Oh, the inside.
I know I'm going fast, and I
Yeah,
apologize.
you are.
So what happened is the pavers are outside the building. I moved off of that onto the third section of the engineer's letter,
Okay.
which has to do with site plan
I'm
revisions.
sorry. You're right.
So inside the building, a stripe can certainly delineate the area of warehouse from the area of vehicles parking. So the two areas of all these bullets, we agree. We wish to just comment and ask for the board's recognition that the way in which the resolution was worded at the planning board level, it's almost contradictory. So if you look at bullet number 1, 2, 3, 4, it says there shall be no outside storage anywhere on the lot, including building materials, stone, soil, construction equipment, or vehicles. So what I think that intended to mean, and it should be stated, is that the construction equipment or vehicles meant construction vehicles. Obviously, we need to park vehicles outside, and that's what we're approved to do. So it would be a contradiction if we couldn't park vehicles outside in this bullet, but everywhere else we're allowed to. So that can be just clarified with the use of the word construction before the word vehicles.
Hold on one second, Counselor.
We will, well, the application really hasn't started yet. We're good. No, there will be testimony. Some of the board members have some concerns, but you'll address them later on when we get to them.
Absolutely.
So this is beyond the reports.
Okay. Similarly, the last bullet where it says there'll be no storage in the basement, when I read the resolution granted by the planning board in 2018, they're clearly not stopping someone from using a basement that they built. Otherwise, it would have been without purpose to have it. What they're referring to is that the warehouse is for storage of all the construction materials on the site. So the owner can certainly use his basement, and he wouldn't want to be open to a violation if someone went downstairs and found some file cabinets, found some tools, because they're expensive. You don't want to have them out where employees could take them. So there would be some things in the basement. Just, it's not storage of warehouse inventory. And I think that's what it was intended to say. So if you insert one word, the word warehouse, before storage, that fixes that intent. Then we would move on to other items that are with respect to the site. And
Mr. Kayat, what you appear to be doing, I wasn't at the planning board hearing, I don't know if any of us were, but you're interpreting the conditions, and we have no idea. I mean, this is the language from the planning board, and now you're basically saying, without going back to the planning board for clarification, you're basically saying, okay, put this word here, put that word there, and it's changing it a little bit. And I don't know, I'm a little uncomfortable with your assuming a different board, interpreting a different board's resolution, and we have no idea.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we're before two different boards, but I think there's authority for it. And first of all, we didn't raise it as much as it came up in the engineer's letter, so we do need to address what the engineer raised. Secondly, now that we have, we're asking for a use variance, once that use variance is granted, we'll always be within the jurisdiction of this board, is my understanding. So this board is the one we would get relief on any site plan approval, including those conditions set by the planning board. So it is appropriate that Mr. Berry raised them here, because we are having site plan review as a result of the request for a use variance. Really, honestly, all we wanted to come here is get a permission for his father to live upstairs. There's already a kitchen there, there's already a bathroom, so.
All right, but I don't think you should assume that your clarification of what the planning board put in as a condition is gonna, it may or may not fly with the board. When all is said and done, this board will come up with its own conditions if the application is approved, and they may be the same as the planning board, they may be a little bit different, but I just didn't want this interpretation to go on because we don't know. We don't know. I mean, you've added words in front of things, and it may make sense, it may not. I don't know. Do any of the board members have a feeling about this?
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Travano.
Lou, as far as us hearing this case, we're hearing this case for the first time.
Yeah, right,
All right?
right.
And what's being presented to us is for the first time.
Yes,
Conditions that exist on site, we're hearing for the first time.
yes,
We are handling it for the first time.
yep.
Okay.
And we have ultimately the power to, again, in the event this board approves this application after we hear it, we will have conditions, no doubt, we do in everything, but we will have a new bite at that apple. You know, we're not locked into the planning board conditions. This board will formulate their own, which may or may not consist of the modifications that the attorney's suggesting. It's up to us, so we'll see. All right.
I want to say something, Mr. Counselor. You said that you're here tonight to get approval for his father to live upstairs. That is not fact. Fact here is you're here asking for a D1 use variance to put a residential unit upstairs, okay? We have to, you've got a planner who's gonna talk about reaching Medici level standards to get us to be able to approve that. So what you're asking for is a D1 use for residential upstairs. Who lives there is not as much a concern as getting to the law to be able to approve that or not, correct?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would expect nothing less. Thank you for that clarification.
I would think that it opens a site to our jurisdiction of what is on site.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So at this time, I'm gonna ask our engineer if you would put his site plan up, and we'll.
Yeah, why don't we start with the witnesses and
That's exactly
see
what
how
we're
far we
gonna do
get.
right now. Thank you for letting me address these broad stroke issues that came up.
If you want to call your first witness?
Yes. He's setting up now. As soon as you can put the site plan up? No. You don't have a site plan to show them?
No, not to put on the board, no.
Well, will certainly will find one and put one up. We have to show them the site plan.
We have the
Maybe you
site
could
plan, right?
swear in James Mastronardi, who's gonna testify as an engineer at the moment. And he's here as a planner as well, and he has appeared before the Fairfield Planning Board.
All right, so he'll be your first witness.
That's right.
Okay, why don't you come on up?
Hey, Jim, if you're gonna be testifying, oh, okay. I was gonna say, maybe you can move a microphone over and do it so we can hear. That's good. Thank you.
So, Counselor, he'll be testifying as a planner and engineer?
Yes.
What hat is he wearing right now, or will he be wearing right now?
Engineer.
Engineer, okay. If you could raise your right hand, please, sir. With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes, I do.
For the record, if you could state your name and spell your last name, please.
James B. Mastronardi. M as in Mary, A-S-T-R-O-N-A-R-D-Y.
Thank you. Threw me off.
Mr. Mastroni, would you explain your education and your qualifications, please?
I testified before the planning board.
Well, this is a
Excuse
different.
me,
This
excuse
is
me.
not the planning board. This is a different.
If you've been around the state, every time you come before a board, especially for the first time, you don't just say, hey, I got a good rep. Explain it a little bit so I could accept it.
My planning license and engineering license in 1989. I've appeared before some 30-some-odd boards since then.
You're a licensed engineer.
And I'm a current licensed engineer and planner.
And your licenses are in effect and
Yes.
good and valid?
I will accept.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr.
Again, this is
Mastroni.
not the planning board.
Yeah, I got it.
This is a
Understand. I
new ballgame.
Well, for the benefit of the board, would you please give them a summary of the site? Start with the perimeter, so they see the perimeter.
Okay, the lot is unusually shaped, triangular. It's got a ditch running through to the stream, Greenbrook, the stream. And that particular shape and the existence of the ditch and the stream create some difficulties as far as, for example, meeting the minimum 10,000 square foot requirement for a building. And so we have a building that is some 4,000 square feet. And we got approval before the planning board for that size building.
Mr. Mastronardi,
Yes.
you made this plan yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're fully familiar with the site, obviously, correct?
Yes.
Show them the perimeter of the building as it relates to the perimeter of the site. Yes, that's the perimeter of the building right there.
Okay, here's the building, here's the ditch that kind of bisects the property and then runs into the stream, which runs along the rear hypotenuse, should I say, of the property.
Now, where do you enter from Passaic Avenue?
Entrance is on the, should I say, the south side of the property, closer to the south property line.
And what is the width of that entrance?
Okay, all right, well, that speaks to the comment by Steve. It is 35 feet wide for about a 16-foot length from the curb. So, whereas Steve's letter said that, whereas 30 feet is the maximum you can have, that's actually not quite true. A two-way driveway, commercial driveway, two-way, is supposed to be between 24 and 30 feet wide. That's the driveway. It doesn't specifically say in the ordinance that the entrance has to be 30 feet maximum. It's 35 feet, and I think that's fine because cars traveling on Passaic Avenue is a 45 mile-an-hour speed limit, but sometimes, as you know, cars are traveling like 50, 55 miles an hour, and I think the additional 5 feet is actually a good thing to allow cars to kind of gain an angle as you're coming out and join the traffic, you know, in a better position. So I don't think that's a problem.
Do you happen to know if that curb cut was a pre-existing curb cut? to
Oh,
the
and
construction?
that curb cut was pre-existing. Mrs. Cica did not change the curb cut. That was there.
So the prior curb cut was 35 feet?
Yes, exactly where it was is where it is now.
Now, we also would like you to comment, there's currently a New Jersey DEP flood hazard permit?
Yes, that's ongoing. The DEP did come out a couple of times to check on the property, how things were going, and Mrs. Cica satisfied them thus far. It's not 100% closed out, but it's ongoing, and there are no problems with DEP.
Now, there's an area on.
Yeah, Counselor, hold on, Mr. Travani.
Why isn't it closed out?
Well, because the project is not 100% complete, that's all.
It's not 100% complete.
No.
Okay.
So, Counselor, you would make a condition of approval that the DP would be completely satisfied and the county on the road would be completely satisfied with the project, right?
100%.
Okay.
The county is satisfied. Oh, the county is satisfied, correct? I think the county is satisfied.
County has done already, yeah, okay.
Now, on your site plan, is there some place that designates where a garbage dumpster would be outside the building?
This particular site plan dated July 27th is based on the as-built drawing, as-built by the surveyor, which was done in June, a month prior. So, but the original site plan does show a dumpster, and that will be, you know, we will comply with that original plan from 2018 to show a dumpster area in this corner over here. See, I simply drew this based on the as-built in June of 23.
And so there was never a dumpster pad built and then removed, it just
Oh, no.
hasn't been built yet? Is
It
that
just
the way-
hasn't been built yet.
Okay, so are we agreeing that we're going to build it as we originally had approvals?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, hold on, yeah, Mr. Travani.
Because this is not.
Do you have today a copy of that?
I do.
Yes, it does.
Should we mark this?
Probably have to, that's the
Yep.
A1, and what can we call this?
We're gonna date it, we're gonna call it site plan dated February 16, 2023.
And that's the planning board site plan?
Yeah.
It would be. I thought you'd prepared this though, actually, for this application.
No, this is not the board.
Oh, this isn't here either.
Planning board.
Hold on, I've got it actually. I saw it today.
I have it, if you want me to get it, I know exactly.
Yeah, please get it, let's mark it. Thank you, Brian.
That's not the one either. This shows, this shows the container.
What are we looking for? What?
Okay.
Yeah. So let's just mark this A1 and tell them the name and date.
There have been a number of addendum-type plans, one for the sign, one for the, the shed. Well, this one has the shed. This one has the shed and the sign on it. But it also shows exactly where the trash enclosure is supposed to go.
What is this? Is this the approved
Sorry,
site plan
I'm
from the
getting
planning board?
No.
Okay.
So this is entitled Site Plan Additions, and it's dated May 18th of 2022.
May
18, 2022, I'm gonna mark it
plan
A1.
addition?
A1.
Mr. Meshar, does this reflect the same site, 81 Passaic Avenue?
Yes.
And does this reflect a garbage dumpster area?
Yes, it does. It shows it in the right corner, right rear corner of the rear parking lot. Right there.
And that's what the
And that
applicant,
reflects the approved 2018 drawing.
So that was on the 2018
Yes.
drawing.
Yes.
We'll take your word for it, since we don't have a copy of it, right? Okay.
and I think he explained how we ended up here. He was using a as-built survey, and therefore, it dropped off the plan, but it was always intended to be done, to be part of our site plan.
What else is on that plan that you want accepted that might not be on another plan?
That sign isn't up.
Well, tell me about the sign. Did the planning board approve a sign on its final?
We swear in my client, he'll explain the answer to that.
Flagpole. I mean,
Let's,
what about it?
Why don't we
Sign
finish?
in the flagpole?
I didn't say anything about the flagpole. I just asked if the sign that's on your plan there was an approved sign by the planning board or not, or when the planning board approved the project.
We didn't go back to the planning board for the sign and the flagpole, but,
Wait, say that again? I'm sorry?
we didn't go back to the planning board just for the sign and the flagpole. Do you know what happened with that one?
Yes, I can speak about that. If you wanted me to get involved with that, I could get involved.
why not,
Well, your attorney will have to swear you in.
do you want to, I'll swear him in if you want, usually we go witness by witness, so it makes sense. Yeah. What do you
Depends
want
if
to
we're
do?
gonna answer the chair's question now or after we're finished with the engineer.
Okay, yeah, I could wait on that question.
All right, great. So that takes care of the dumpster area. Now, going back to the plan, the site plan, what's the date of that site plan?
July 17th.
The July 17th site plan, we're going back to that now.
Of what year?
Of 23.
2023. Yeah, we're going
July
back to
what,
that.
17th?
Yes.
23.
That's right. That's the one that was submitted with this application.
Oh, that's the one that you have, that we have.
The bigger one.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Burry indicated that we added an additional spot, and that we would like him to clarify if possible. And we'd like to go over, I'd like you to explain to the board the areas where the brick pavers are, if you can.
Okay, so, well, what did you mean by that? I had asked for an extra spot.
You referenced in your letter, see if I could find it, that there was an additional parking spot. We didn't know of an additional parking spot, so.
Well, Jim, right, there's one more parking
Correct.
space than what
Right.
the planning board, than the original planning board
Right.
had approved. So,
Right, so-
I don't know, maybe just real quick, since you have the planning board plan, just hit real quick what is different from this plan than what the planning board had. I think that might be of some benefit. Just real quick, the driveway entrance, the parking, and the material for
Right,
the,
okay,
so we're all on the same page on what's different. from-
Right. The original site plan provided for, let's see, 10 parking spaces with 10 provided. Now, because in applying for the use variance for apartment, there's one less space required. The second floor showroom required 3 spaces. The one-bedroom apartment requires 2. So we reduced it from 10 to 9. Yet, we increased the available parking here by 1. So we have 11 proposed parking spaces total now, whereas only 9 is required. Whereas before, the approved plan from the planning board was 10 and 10. 10 required, 10 provided.
So
You
you're
understand?
proposing that the whole second floor is gonna be residential?
Yes. one-bedroom apartment.
Just be clear
The
that it doesn't
entire-
include the warehouse footprint, it's just over the office. So I'm asking you, when he asked you, the whole second floor, you mean the floor above the office?
Yeah, the floor above the office, which is the same square footage as the office area.
However, there's a warehouse in the back, and to be clear, there won't be a second floor on the warehouse.
No, there won't be a second floor in the warehouse. The warehouse is high, you know, it's the full height of the building.
So the second floor of this building is gonna have the front,
The front part,
and what's the back part?
warehouse.
It's wide open.
Open warehouse.
The warehouse on the second floor, is that correct? Or is it
Correct.
open warehouse?
Open warehouse from ground
Ground.
to the top of the building.
Okay, so what Steve was asking you was, why did it come about that if you need one less space than the planning board approved, how come it turns out that you've got one more?
Because the showroom square footage required 3.
Right,
The one-bedroom apartment only requires 2.
right? Yeah, so
One less.
all I know is I read that the planning board gave 10 spots and 4 of them were gonna be inside.
Correct.
Okay, so now you're saying you've got 11 spots, right?
Total of 11
Right.
provided.
Why? Why is it one
Oh,
more?
because one was added in the back, right? It was in the back. There's 2 in the front, 4 within the warehouse, and 5 in the back. 5, 4, and 2. 11.
All right, I can add, but,
One additional in-
but why?
Because there's the
I don't get it. I might be thick, I'm sorry, I
No,
apologize,
no.
but,
We added 1 in the back.
right.
So, Jim, I think the question might be that there's one less required if you're gonna go to an apartment, correct?
Yes.
But you've actually added one more,
Yes, we got.
rather than remove a site and have 9 required, 9 provided, you've added a spot to provide 11
Correct.
where
There was a
9's
space
required.
Between the first, if you look, there's a loading zone over here.
Mhm.
And previously, we had a space between the loading zone and the first parking space. Well, we got rid of that space, which is not necessary, and managed to fit in 1 more parking space.
Okay, so that's one of the deviations, Steve, from the planning, is the extra spot.
Right,
Okay.
right, and it's just noting that that's a difference of the than what's on the approved site plan.
Right, okay. Yeah, Mr.
While we're
Bassinger.
talking about the 1 parking space, does this mean that extra pavers were added to achieve this, or did it take
Yeah.
away from
Yeah,
impervious
it
coverage?
does, yes, yes.
I'm assuming that's why it's an issue?
Well, it's an issue just because it's
Parking
different.
space.
It's different than what was
It's
approved,
different
so we're
and it
identifying
takes
that.
up impervious coverage, is that accurate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't think it's a question of impervious, is it?
Well,
It does, though.
it is. Impervious.
So the fact that there's additional paver stones and additional impervious, does it trigger a need for a variance?
No, because we're way below
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
maximum impervious area anyway. In fact, let's see, maximum impervious coverage, we're at 23.3%.
Right.
Whereas 55% is allowed.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Right.
I have to ask you about the landscape plan. There was no new landscape plan submitted with this site plan. And is that because we're going to rely upon the prior one submitted?
Yes,
Complete that.
yes. And that landscaping plan was stipulated by the DEP. They wanted, especially this area on the right side of the ditch, they requested a lot of wildflowers and certain other plants, and that's still ongoing, and it's not quite finished yet. You know.
Can you say the same about the lighting plan? Will it remain unchanged to be completed by the
Yes,
applicant?
yes, the lighting plan remains the same.
Mr. Chairman, if there's any questions of this expert?
As far as being an engineer?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from an engineering standpoint?
The stipulation between the pavers versus a pavement.
Well, I believe that this stipulation that the surface be concrete or asphalt was created before pavers became well used. I don't see any difference. It's just, I think the intent of that part of the ordinance was to have a hard surface, and pavers are a hard surface. There's no practical difference between having pavers and having asphalt or concrete.
Have you ever seen if I may, have you ever seen a commercial building with pavers in the parking lot?
Yes, I have.
And have they been striped?
I've seen pavers striped,
Would you
yes.
be able to share where that is?
I don't remember where, but I could definitely. What?
Clinton City Hall.
That's you speaking, but I don't know. I can't remember exactly where.
Steve, do you concur with that assessment?
Well, I haven't, but also, I guess the question, would you believe that the pavers as constructed are structurally adequate for the whatever equipment? Because I know there's construction equipment going back and forth, and their durability would be equivalent to asphalt.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely asphalt. Maybe not concrete, but definitely asphalt.
Any other questions from an engineering standpoint on this? Seeing none. I'd like to open up the public for anyone who has an engineering question. Seeing none. Okay, we're done as far as engineering is concerned.
I'd like to call the next witness, and that is our architect.
Counselor, I just want to ask you, since he's also the planner, are you going to be bringing him back up to discuss planning?
Yes.
Okay.
If you could raise your right hand, please, sir, with regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
Can you state your name, spell your last name, please?
Sure. Joseph Donato, D-O-N-A-T-O, located at 14 Route 4 West, River Edge, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Joseph, could you state your education, qualification, licensing?
Sure. So I graduated in 1985 from New York Institute of Technology. Received my license in the state of New Jersey in 1992. I've had my own practice throughout New Jersey since 1995, and I've been, ever since I've been throughout all New Jersey. I'm also a planning board member for 8 years in my town, so I understand and respect the commitment that you guys hold here.
And notwithstanding that you've already testified in the Fairfield Planning Board, have you ever testified before the Fairfield Zoning Board?
No, I haven't.
Did you prepare those plans?
Yes, I did.
Are you fully familiar with them?
Yes, I am.
I submit this witness.
He's accepted, yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Perhaps you could just briefly describe the building, where the warehouse is, where the proposed apartment will be.
Sure. So the plans are dated September 1st, 2022. These are the plans that were submitted to the board. And I'll go through each level. So the building was approved by our previous application. The size hasn't changed, 51 feet wide, 60 feet deep. The floor space have not changed, and I'll go through each level of what it consisted of and what we're proposing. So sheet A3, which is the first floor, what we proposed and was built was an office in the front of the building, which is the first 22 feet by 51. It has glass and doors that faces Fairfield. That was proposed to be office space. And then behind it, which is another 35 feet by 51 feet, is open warehouse, 2 stories high. Garage doors from the back, that would allow for 4 parking spaces and a warehouse. The only thing that we did add and was approved, we added an elevator in the back of the warehouse and against the walls that shared between the office and the warehouse. Otherwise, the stairs were approved, built, and the building is almost done. They had gone for inspection. They don't have a CO. So that first floor basically is built the way it was approved, other than the elevator. Then our second floor, so it's still a 2-story building. is still 51 feet wide by 60 feet. The back 35 feet of the warehouse is still 2 stories. We're not proposing any floor space. The elevator was added, and that second floor was proposed to be a showroom. It was gonna be either a kitchen, I thought you had a question. It was supposed to be a showroom for kitchen cabinets and with the office downstairs. The space was built just like approved. It was going to be a wall separation, an office in the front, open showroom with a bathroom and storage. Those walls were approved, that's how it was built. And the only difference that we're asking for is the use of that floor. So what was going to be an office is now going to be a bedroom. We have a bathroom was already proposed and approved. That's going to be the bathroom. Storage closet is part of the bedroom. And in that, what was going to be in the showroom, we had like a little kitchenette for the staff of the showroom. That actual showroom area is now proposed to be open living, kitchen, dining for one person. So this now is why we're here tonight. The use for here would be a 1-bedroom apartment. But again, the layout is exactly what was approved as far as showroom, office, and bathroom. Then the other thing that was also was the basement of the structure. So there's a basement in the front part of the building, which is under the office, which now we're proposing to make office showroom. I'll go back to that sheet. Sheet A3. Yeah, A3. So the front portion was proposed to be office space. Now, same space, same open area is proposed to be showroom and office together. But at the same time, we had an office, we had a basement proposed and approved, and that is only under the front part of the office area. Again, the back part is just concrete slab that's below the warehouse. So as far as floor space, we haven't added any additional floor space. We haven't added any size of the building. It's exactly how it was approved. We're just here asking to change the use of the second floor to a 1-bedroom apartment versus a showroom. And I believe the engineer testified that the parking requirement compared to a showroom to a 1-bedroom apartment is 1 less parking. That's what he testified to.
Questions?
Questions for the architect?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Amian.
The area, the proposed area for the 1-bedroom apartment, that backs up to the 2-story garage, warehouse?
Right, but it's a fire-rated wall separating the two.
Okay, so that's, you answered
Whether,
my question.
even if it was the showroom, we had that fire rated.
Okay, thank you.
Soundproof wall too? Yes.
Is the fire-rated wall going out to the warehouse? What about the first floor going up to the second floor? Is that also consistent with the fire rating that would handle the?
Ceiling, the ceiling of the office showroom is a 1-hour rated, and the stairwell is actually 2-hour rated. That's always been that way.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Amian.
Is there a second means of egress from the apartment on the second floor?
No, it's well, you got an elevator, which is not permitted to be an egress, but we have a door that goes to a set of stairs. And because of the distance, travel distance to an exit, we're well below what's required for 2 exits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone else have?
Donato,
Mr. Baskin.
Is this building sprinklered?
It's not sprinkled.
And are there fire alarms right now?
There's fire alarm, smoke, carbon.
That
correct.
there is?
Right.
And so, but there's not a 2-hour separation wall between warehouse and proposed living space?
So that's a 1-hour wall. Right.
Do you know the code, what it is?
Not offhand, but I could, if it needs to be.
Right.
I know the inspections were made and approved to this point.
It was approved as commercial.
Right, so if we kind of, we're gonna have to go for permits to make this, and if it requires an extra layer of, the difference between 1 hour and 2 hours is 1 layer of sheet rock. We would have to do that.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
And, Mr. Mattel?
How's it heated and is it gonna be air conditioned?
So this apartment is heated and air conditioned with one HVAC unit for that apartment.
Where is it?
It's in the, on the roof, I'm sorry. It's on the roof.
Not visible.
It's a flat roof.
You have a parapet?
If you look at this, this wall, this schematic section, we have like a 4-foot parapet. Their units are right above the apartments.
I see him now.
And you can see the 2-story storage. You can see the basement underneath the showroom. And it doesn't fall under the it's under the threshold for a sprinkler system as far as square footage.
Was there a note from the fire department? No. I don't
Yes.
remember all the items, but.
Yes, the fire department addressed the area you're concerned with regard to making sure all walls meet the code and the fire subcode and the UCC. So as he's represented, we would have to amend that if necessary.
Mr. Giovanni? Yeah.
Mr. Donato, can you give me some kind of characteristic of the elevator that you're proposing?
It's in already.
Is it a 3-stop? Is it servicing the basement as well as?
It's a 2-stop.
It's just servicing the first floor and the second floor?
That's it.
Is it a commercial elevator or a residential elevator?
It's a residential elevator. It's a commercial. Sorry, I'm jumping. I'm sorry, yeah. It's commercial, yes.
So dimension-wise, what are the dimensions of it?
I believe it's 6 by 8. I don't have the size on here.
6 by 8, I'm gonna guess by 6 by 8, but it's commercial. Most important part, it is commercial because the building is a commercial building.
Why don't we-
And the elevator's all inspected.
We're gonna have to swear up. Right away, as soon as he's done, we go back to either you or the planning testimony.
So plans were submitted by the elevator company to the building department. They have reviewed it, approved it, and it's actually built.
Okay. Other questions for the architect? Seeing none. I'd like to open it up to the public for anyone who has questions for the architect. Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the elevator has been installed?
Approved, installed,
Approved and
inspected.
installed, but it wasn't a part of the initial approval?
No. Not in front of the planning board.
What's that?
How was it inspected?
Was it,
If it wasn't a part of the initial drawings, there was a revision that was submitted
To the building department, yes.
to the building department, but did, as far as the planning, they didn't have anything? Hello?
I didn't need to. So,
It's odd that it wasn't on the original plan, but if you submitted something to the building department and it was approved, even though it was not on a plan, but they saw a plan
Correct.
and they approved it,
Inspected.
and the elevator's in.
Correct.
Okay, it's there, Not,
other questions of the
not
architect?
smooth, but it's there.
Seeing none, okay.
Next witness.
Yep.
Danny Cica.
You'll, Counselor, you'll bring the planner up after Danny?
Yes, I mean, he needs to answer your question about the sign approval and with regard to the commercial elevator. And any other questions the board may have of him.
Okay.
If you could raise your right hand, please, Dan. With regard to this application, do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Could you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Daniel Cica, Scirica.
And you're the applicant and owner of the building, okay?
Danny, the chairman asked a question earlier. Did the planning board approve a sign for this site?
No, the site was not approved. I brought the sign paperwork into the town myself and got it approved work to it.
You can sit down if you want. Okay.
I worked it out with the zoning official, Glenn, many times back and forth. I originally wanted to start off with a sign that was double-sided. He said no, because it was too many lettering. I changed the sign to the forward. He agreed. We picked the location on the site plan, and I'm in the process. It's not installed yet. It's gonna be in line with the flagpoles. So I took some nice pictures that I'd like to submit to the board, if I may, Tony.
Sure. Yeah, we'll mark them.
The,
I made plenty.
A2,
A2,
I believe. Yeah.
thank you.
Could you tell us when you took these pictures?
Today.
You, okay.
This is this morning.
A2, pictures of the site.
And I'm trying to resolve two things, because there was a question regarding the flagpole. And I'm gonna try not to talk quick, because there's a lot of passion I have for this building. And if I go too quick, please just stop me, Tony, and I'll back up.
Okay.
With that being said, I worked on this building.
Yeah, if I could have a copy, also.
Of course.
Thank you.
I can share.
And did I get everybody?
Yes.
With that being said, the reason why, just backing up a little tiny bit, just to get my engineer a little bit out of trouble, I handed the engineer a site plan approval. A site plan of the way the building sits now is because Steve hounded me, said the day of the meeting, show all the little changes that you made, and let's get it all cleared up that night. So I went and I got an as-built done by the professional surveyor, got it signed and sealed, so we could see the little bit of changes that me and Steve haggled over while this building was going up. When you do own your own building and you're building it yourself, you do come up with some minor changes that make the building more nice and more easy to use the building. With that being said, Steve said, please, Danny, do an as-built for the night, and he actually took the other plan out of it and said, just submit the as-built, because I had that submitted, and he said, we don't need that, just give this one as-built and make 18 copies of it. So just to help Jim out on that, he didn't really know his site plan wasn't there. It's kind of my fault and the decision that me and Steve made. I got beat up with Steve a lot because we did some minor changes. The driveway apron was there. I had nothing to do with it. I was there. I called up the county, and the county said, because it's different, it's in a different location as prior. It was 10 feet this way, and the county said, please don't touch my curb. Leave it where it is. And I looked at him, I said, absolutely. I said, and because I was saving work, and it works where it is. So at that point, I had to prove that to Steve. Not easy to get something from the county. It took me 2 months to get the letter from the county saying that it was okay where, that it was changed from the original plan. With that being said, I applied for, this is kind of funny, in my mind it's kind of funny. I applied for one flagpole, but when I started putting the flagpole up, I wanted an American flag. Then after that, I said, I want an Italian flag. Then with all the controversy with the police, I said, I want a blue flag. So I put up 3 flagpoles with 3 individual flags because I thought it was more elegant and more required for what's going on with our world right now. So I put up 3 flagpoles. I put them in line. If they do require to be moved, God forbid, Steve, if they're in the setback, I will make Steve completely happy. I'm thinking about putting my sign directly in line with the flagpoles, if it's okay also. I don't do anything without a permit. The shed was, I went to the town again, got beat up by Glenn. We decided on the location. The shed isn't exactly as where the as-built is now, because he asked, where's the shed? It's perfectly marked on the as-built survey where it was, and it was inspected not only by Steve, it was inspected by the DEP, it was inspected by everybody, because this particular site had many, many inspections by the DEP for some odd reason, but which is fine because everything was on the up and up.
I don't know what else you would like for me to talk about, but I'm here. If you have any other questions, Tony, I could definitely answer it. It's because, the elevator was definitely an afterthought. We just, we decided to spend some more money, and we said, let's put a commercial elevator in it.
And it's a commercial elevator?
And it's a commercial elevator, and it's inspected. It was submitted and inspected, and it's all ready to go. Because that's done. When I get the CO for the building, that thing is 100% inspected, which triggered a fire alarm system that needs to be 24-hour surveillance, which helps the building also.
Can you see the shed in the picture here?
Yes, you can see if you look at it looks like the mini building. If you look in the corner, it kind of looks like the building in the right middle behind the garage.
You happen to know the dimensions of the shed?
The largest shed without footings is 12 by 16 in this town. Not just for me, for anybody.
And just to repeat, if as a condition of approval, you will agree to move the flagpoles and the sign so that way it doesn't require a variance and subject to the engineer's approval.
Correct, and I think it's correct is because it's been there for a while, so I'm hoping that they don't have to be moved, but absolutely, I always have to satisfy Steve.
Okay, it's actually zoning, and I know they issued permits, right?
Yes, correct.
Just verify.
But
They
I
issued
put
a
more-
permit for a flag,
Yeah.
a sign, and a shed. And as far as what's out there now, you're not requesting any variances for what's there now, and they are in compliance with the zoning permit, or, and that's what you're requesting is what the zoning permit. You're not requesting any variances for any of these, anything different than what was on the permits that were issued by zoning.
So there's no issue, Steve, with it being three flagpoles?
Steve,
Yes.
there's no issues with
Yeah.
the flag? Okay.
The zoning offset would have to review it. I believe, he issued a zoning permit for one
He said
flag.
there's absolutely nothing wrong with it that I should have put that I was gonna
So-
do 3. It was just an
So I
add-on.
don't know that whether or not, honestly, an issue if it goes
You
to
would make it-
3, but
So you would
that
make
would
it a
have to be,
condition of approval to check with those permits and get 2 more filled out if you had to?
Absolutely.
right, and if that ended up requiring a variance, you'd have to request one if it doesn't.
Okay. We're here mainly for the use variance, meaning the apartment's not permitted in this zone. So maybe focus on that, and then I know your planner will be up also. Talk about the apartment. Why? Why there?
Well, question is, with regard to the apartment, who do you envision would live there?
Well, we had a big problem in my family. I lost my mother suddenly, not supposed to be gone, but that's not one main reason to put my father there. He actually loves to work, he lives to work, so him being upstairs would bring safety to that whole area because he'll be coming in and out, keeping an eye on everything in that complete 1 mile zone because he's a hard worker than me. So I think it would be a great advantage to have a guy there that is in a light industrial zone that you could never fit a 10,000 square foot building because it's the shape of a pie and there's no other building that could fit in that thing. To have a tenant, a 1-bedroom tenant in there would be incredibly a lot of security.
Danny, do you work in that building?
When we're gonna be working out of that building as soon as we get the CO.
So then it's your plan to see your father?
Every day as much as I can, because my mom is not around.
How about the basement? What do you keep in the basement?
The basement, I'm glad you brought, because I forgot to bring that up, is very important, because I think Steve did me a favor for tonight, saying, hey, Danny, you got storage down there. So I got it set up with shelves, stuff that we don't use, you put in the, maybe it does have to go in the garbage, but you don't put it in the garbage, you put it in the basement, and it still belongs in the, but you still have a place like that, file cabinet. It's a nice size basement. I mean, not to say you can't put anything in it. I think it was definitely not the right thing. I needed to straighten that out also, and I think that's why Steve wrote it for me to bring it up tonight.
So when you say it's not the
That-
right thing.
Just for clarity, I didn't say that. That's in the planning board resolution from years ago. That's not,
But I thought you
That's
put it,
not me.
I thought you wrote it as a note for me to bring up tonight. I thought you were helping. I could be wrong.
yeah, no, it's just rehashing of the planning board
Okay,
resolution,
correct.
just for the record, that
Okay,
wasn't me.
that's fine.
All right.
So the fact that the planning board resolution says no storage in the basement, you don't do you understand that to mean no storage of like a further use of warehouse space? So you
Yes, I understand. It's gonna be used not for a warehouse, not for me storing whatever I'm gonna plan to sell, but it's gonna be for a filing cabinet, extra expensive tools,
things you own.
salt. I got 20 bags of salt down there just in case you need salt, you know. It's a good spot for the salt to be. It's a nice basement. I mean, it's a nice dry basement. I wish my house had a basement. Can't bring that up, Tony, right? I'm sorry. I wish my house had a basement.
Wish mine did too.
Mr. Chairman, is there any other questions?
Questions for the owner?
I just had a quick question. You're not utilizing the building currently.
As of right now, there's no CO. We're under construction. You heard I still gotta do a concrete pad. There's a lot of little odds and ends that need to be taken place to finish the building. When it's open, you're gonna be invited to the grand opening. I promise. The whole board, we're gonna have a nice mortadella sandwich with mozzarella we're gonna eat. We're gonna enjoy the building once it's done. You'll know when it's a grand opening.
And you made,
Is that a condition?
you're gonna be working out of the building. What does that mean, working out of the building?
Well, when you do construction, you pick up your project in the morning, maybe have an espresso with my dad upstairs, get downstairs, jump in a vehicle and go to the job site.
I have a question. What if your dad doesn't like living there and he moves out? And we've granted you permission to have this one-bedroom apartment. What do you do then? What are you gonna do with that space?
I think it would still be very ideal to rent is because office space right now, I can't even get my wife excited to go to the new office is because she's so used to working at a home. So office space, it would be harder to rent than a one-bedroom apartment that's set up like a set up
So it would be your intention then to rent it out as an apartment?
Yeah.
at all times after my dad.
We
But I
can't,
hope he lives there
we
for a
can't
long
limit
time.
it to just his father.
Right.
It would be a one-bedroom apartment. If his father is there for 50 years, wonderful, but if it's open and,
The reason I have to ask you that is because we have to be mindful of what we decide the application under. And you're asking for a residential use in a light industrial area, which is really not that common, to be honest with you. And, you know,
I understand.
You don't see this very often, to say the least.
I understand that. Page 2, because I went like a wildfire here. Page 2 of that same thing that I just showed you, when you're standing, this is me taking a picture right across the street, and those are, I'm gonna call them, they were townhouses, but the guy decided to rent them as apartments.
There are
And that,
rentals right across the street.
and that is angle, literally, if you walk closer to the corner, you would get obviously closer to the thing. They do fit, and again, this lot, you couldn't, I mean, it's just a slice of a pizza, it looks like, to put anything else there.
Those buildings are right across the street and they're rentals.
If you look in the thing, you go,
On the opposite side.
Yes.
That zone light industrial. Yeah, I don't know. What is that?
No,
Do you know?
it's not signed L1.
Zone residential.
It's a different zone.
Yeah,
Zone.
yeah. So Dan, so you do understand that the variance that you're requesting for the apartment, it runs with the land, not with the user. It stays with the land always.
of course.
Okay. I don't know whether or not I want to continue to ask some questions to the applicant or I want to get to the planner first.
give him his call.
You could always call Manny back, right? Yeah. I just want to, while Danny's here, Counselor, I do have to go back to something you said at the beginning of the, of your application. I could understand you talking about your old approval and what is considered storage in the basement. You make a reasonable argument on that, that as long as it's not whatever material he's using daily, that it should be able to, it's a basement, it's gotta be used for something, right? But you do know when you applied for this at the planning board level, you told the planning board, and it's in the, as I read the resolution, that you were gonna use this as a commercial property. It was gonna be sales and installation of kitchen cabinets, windows, and doors. That you were gonna use the warehouse and storage space, office space, and showroom for customers. You even described an operation of 8 o'clock to 4:30. It says in there, all trucks and it will be parked inside the building. Knowing your business, Dan, it didn't sound on what you accepted as the approvals from the planning board that you were gonna be doing construction company out of that. That you were gonna be doing some type of commercial windows and kitchens and sales. Right?
Well, I'm considering what you're saying, and it's still exactly what I would like, what I'm gonna be doing out of that building.
Well, your attorney is already starting to try to hedge on the planning, or asking us for a variance on what the planning board approved by saying that you should be able to have construction vehicles outside. Once you get the CO, you're gonna have construction vehicles because you're a builder and you remove tanks. Those are construction businesses. What was approved for the planning board had nothing to do with construction. So I don't understand how, what are you gonna do with unless you ask for the approvals that with anything, with soils or bricks or construction materials in your yard. It's what I know you do for a living is different than the more limited approval that you got originally.
So with regard to storage in the basement.
I don't need to talk about that.
Oh,
I
good.
get that. I said I
With
agree
regard to
with you
trucks,
on that.
and I was saying from the start, we recognize that the planning board banned construction equipment outside and banned construction vehicles outside.
Right.
My problem is they say construction equipment or vehicles. I would like it to be more clear, so it's never a violation in the future. What they meant to say is construction equipment or construction vehicles, because his vehicles, which are not construction vehicles, are authorized to park outside.
His dump truck is not a construction vehicle?
No, that's his
What is it?
regular business vehicle, a
No,
construction.
he's got
a crane.
he's got a big dump truck, he's got a backhoe. The guy digs tanks for a living out of the ground, and he's very good at what he does, but it's construction. He's also a builder. I mean, his dad built houses in other towns, they built houses in this town. So he's got construction vehicles. So I'm just trying to get I want it clarified, and I want it on the record of what was asked for at the planning and that fact that you're deviating on what you're saying that you think the planning board meant and what you want now. Because it's gonna weigh in heavily when we get to the planner. Danny, emotionally, you know I'm with you with why you want to do what you want to do, and you know I am. But there is going to be a lot of planning testimony that we're going to have to voir dire about meeting standards all the way up to Medici to allow us to approve you for a D1 use variance, which I will take issue with Mr. Chiaya later when he said that that was just a minor thing, when it's not. A D1 use variance, from everything I was schooled when I was put on this board, is the toughest thing to get. And it's proved to be the toughest thing because you need Medici standards to prove it.
If he was asking for 26 units,
No,
Chairman,
no, it
that
doesn't
would be a
matter. It
major
doesn't
thing.
matter if it's
This is
1 or 26, it doesn't matter. You're going into an L1 zone. We're arguing planning right now, which we need to do still, both you and your planner. But it's still a D1 use variance for a residential in an L1 zone. You guys are gonna have to prove that standard. It can't be emotional, It can't be because, of one, tragic events that happened to a nice family. It's gotta be for legitimate reasons that meet a standard. So to get to that, which we're gonna get to, is why I'm asking Danny about the fact that, and he understands that if his father's not in there, that he could rent it to anybody else. He could rent a one-bedroom to someone who has a kid, to a woman without a husband and a kid. Now, the kid is gonna be traveling in the front yard, in the backyard. He's not gonna be able, and if you have construction vehicles that dig tanks, and you have his dump truck, which is a construction vehicle, and his backhoe, which is a construction vehicle, that's dangerous. So I need to know what he represented at the planning board level, what he really plans on doing, and how that's gonna fit when we try to meet the standards to be able to see if we could approve the apartment.
I think you're 100% correct. The hardest variance to get is a D1. My comment was directed at probably the scope of the D1 because the building's already built and it's just one bedroom unit. So we'll address it in planning, and that was what I meant.
So we need to get a better idea. We need to know what he's gonna be doing there. Are you gonna have your backhoe, your skid?
Anything that I'm gonna have there, Mr. Chairman, is will be more delightful than what was there in the beginning. That L1 can be, if I could have made it an L1, I would have put a 10,000 square foot building, and I would have been
No,
happy.
of course you couldn't, Dan.
So now me going into,
It wasn't a good piece of property for 10,000 square feet, come on.
That's what I'm trying to say. So for me to put an L1 didn't work. Now we got this small building. I would like to put the one bedroom apartment there. Not looking for hardship for my dad, because my dad is healthy and he's strong. I just think it was the right fit. This day and age, you go to rent an office, there's plenty of them. I'm telling you, I mean it. I'm having a hard time to get Roseanne to get out of Roseanne, get excited about the new office to get there. She's so comfortable in her own home office than to get out and be into that building. With me doing construction, I'm hoping to God, sooner or later, it's gonna be lighter and lighter and lighter construction.
But we can't look at what's gonna happen one day in your career. We have to look at what's happening now. What's happening now is you told the planning board you were gonna do commercial use out of there. And it was sales and installation of cabinets, windows, and doors. Sales. Your warehouse was gonna be for the sales and for delivery trucks parking there. You're gonna have an office and you were gonna have a showroom. And your operations were gonna be from 8 to 4:30. And you weren't gonna have any construction vehicles parked there overnight. But that's not what you're doing.
I'm gonna have to disagree. I think that office construction is, if you're gonna do windows, you're gonna do an addition. At that point in time, you're gonna have your own stuff. The more to get jobs in this day and age, you have to be competitive. So I'm gonna be doing windows, doors, additions, decks, build a new house here, build a new house there. So the more equipment that you have, the better off you are in this
Okay, so you're getting to where I needed you to get to. You do plan on keeping the construction vehicles and equipment and things on the site.
But we could, if there's a problem, we could leave them indoors. I mean, if that's gonna be the problem for this application, I would leave them inside. I mean, it's not what I thought this building was for. It's a commercial building. You're supposed to be able to use your commercial truck. You're gonna go rip out 20 windows, you wanna roll off. I mean, you don't wanna go rent a roll off.
I'm in the business too, Dan. You're talking about two different things. You were talking about sales and installation of cabinets. You put up a showroom, you sell cabinets or whatever to the masses. They order them, they get delivered to the house.
Oh, you install them too.
You don't have to install them. You could just be selling them. And even if you want to install them, that's great. You're going to install them. You may have an outside subcontractor do the installation for them. But again, you just got done talking about all the different things and build a house and build an addition. That's what I need to know is what you're doing. So when we're talking about the use and the dangers, or you got issues, it's planning issues. We'll go over planning issues when it's planning. But at least I've gotten the idea that you do plan on doing more. So counselor, you should seriously consider on what you're asking us for, because you are deviating more and more from the planning, from the approval of the planning board. You are. I've said it 3 times. Now, it's 5 minutes to 11, and there's no way we're gonna get to the planning this meeting, because it's gonna be way too much. I got a list of planning questions, and Mr. Zabo did an extensive report. He's got comments, and he's gonna have questions. So I think one of the things, I think we're gonna break now, and I think that you're going to come back next meeting. And I think one of the things you need to do is you need to get a lot more specific about what the uses are there and what the deviations from your approval was, so that we could take them into consideration and decide whether or not we're gonna give those variances along with the use variance. I think that's what tightens up this application more.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I agree.
Okay, we're gonna carry to, Steve, what are we doing on the 19th right now? I know we got all pro. We got the car wash probably.
Okay, 16th.
The 16th, yeah, I'm sorry, whatever.
Right, yeah, 16th. Yeah, we'll have the car wash if they're ready, and then another residential, I think you can.
Oh, so this is
yeah,
plenty of room for this?
Yes.
Okay.
If you carry
Counselor,
it.
how-
probably have the res too.
how's that date for you?
April 16.
Yeah,
Yes,
you and the planner.
yes.
Are you, planning's okay for the 16th? April 16th?
One question, will the chairman announce to the public that this is their notice of that meeting?
Yes, right?
Yeah.
No notice carried,
No
right?
further
Okay.
notice. It's carried for the public, April 16th. In this room, 7:30, or as soon as we can get to it. And,
Yeah, well, Steve, we're gonna put Danny up first. The all pro and them, they can wait. We're already into the
Yeah,
application,
we should
so
do this
we'll get
first.
them up first.
Okay.
we're okay on
All right,
time?
so we'll see you guys next month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to pay our bills? Ms. Baskinger and Metallo, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion to close. Honorata, Ivorone, second, all in favor say aye. Aye.